Some of the content of Patriots Unfiltered may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The world's original podcast.
Welcome to Patriots Unfiltered.
It is 100% up to the fans on who gets in.
Yeah, I blame the committee just as much as the fans. I'm an equal opportunity ripper.
Yeah.
I rip everybody.
But is it like a referendum on everything they're doing? Does that overshadow signing Stephon Diggs last week? Now you're all worked up about losing Joe Milton?
I don't know if the person's being sarcastic. Have
you seen Office Space?
No.
Put another one on the
Add
list.
it to my list.
Put it on the
Oh,
list.
yeah.
Before or after Jaws?
Oh, Jaws.
I mean,
first.
it's way.
Jaws first.
I mean, it's way better than Jaws.
He said, I missed that one.
I'm
I might have
smitten with the young man. It
That's
sounded
funny.
like so old-fashioned.
See, like from the 50s.
Yeah, that's like exactly what I was thinking.
Good, it gives me the vapors.
Evan, have you started running any film on kickers yet?
On kickers,
Yeah, I know you love that.
Better Call Saul's. That's my take on the kickers.
All right, thanks, Phil.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes.
We're going to see him go up against, whoever.
Yeah.
Harvey Lang or whoever it is.
Harvey Lang,
Who's the guy they got in free agency?
Harold Landry.
Harold Landry, yeah.
I speak Fred, but sometimes you make it tough.
Harold Landry.
This is Patriots Unfiltered.
Presented by Toyota's official website for deals, buyatoyota.com.
All right, welcome to Patriots Unfiltered. It is Tuesday here at Gillette Stadium. The guys are back in town. Yesterday was the official kickoff of voluntary workouts, otherwise known as OTAs. Or no, not yet.
Not really.
Not
No,
really.
This is off-season program.
Yeah, these
stuff.
aren't organized.
Correct.
Yeah.
Not really.
So it's just the off-season program.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys here. We don't take attendance for these. It's voluntary. But we did hear that Christian Barmore's in the house, which is good news. We don't know what he's doing or what his plan is that they have for him. But it's just good to see that he's here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was pretty cool. I think for the first time since I've been here, the football regime allowed us into the weight room during this time of year. And we got some really cool hype video out on Patriots Social and Patriots.com of the guys working out. So that was great. So we're excited to go, right?
I just like seeing so many guys. Stephon Diggs being here. I don't know where he's at with rehab and all that, but just having him in the building, I think it's a great sign. Saw a lot of the wide receivers in some of those pictures. Just for a room that feels like it needs to get on track and really start to build something. I like seeing all those guys there. Stephon Diggs is there. Let's get it started.
So it's Paul, it's me, it's Deuce. Evan will be joining us. Matt's in the booth with Alex, who's helping out. He's going to hopefully help Matt out from time to time.
Matt needs some help.
He needs help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can provide
In a
the
lot
help
of-
that Matt
in
needs.
In
a
a
lot
lot
of
of ways. A lot of different ways.
Yeah. As he nods. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So
But
what
we
else?
are hearing actually currently from a couple of players. One of them, one of your favorite free agent edition,
Yeah.
right? Harvey Lang.
Harvey Lang's here.
Yes,
Yep.
Harvey Lang is
otherwise
here.
known as Harold Landry.
Correct, and I think Marcus Jones also speaking today. Is that
Marcus
right?
Jones,
Marcus
that's correct.
Jones.
Back
So that's
from
where Evan
Germany.
is right now. So we'll get
We'll come
an
back
update.
with a full report of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also heard from all the defensive coaches, except for defensive coordinator Terrell Williams on Friday. Jeremy Springer took the lead. Interesting to finally get to meet a whole new defensive staff. I mean, last year, a lot of holdovers, not a lot of change. And this year, it was completely new guys, completely new faces. And the word that kept springing up in every room I went to was violence. Like, they're looking for sustained violence. I like that. It seems they have a real philosophy on defense they're building towards. So, interesting guys, interesting new scheme. I mean, it seems like a whole new world on that side of the ball this season.
Cool.
Yeah. And say Jeremy Springer, too, talking about finding the next kicker, trying to get back to the stability that was here for so long with Adam Vinatieri and Stephen, I was calling him Stefan Gostkowski, Stephen Gostkowski.
See, I'm not the only one.
But you guys had it good for so long. It was just you don't really have to think about it, set it and forget it with
Yeah, and
AV
I thought it was interesting.
Gostkowski.
Springer talking about the kickoff. They've one of the alterations to the kickoff this year is it's going to the 35 on a touchback now. So everybody's anticipating more returns.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting that Springer felt like that's going to lead to more sort of the need for more specialization in the kickoff itself.
Yeah.
Which I'm not necessarily sure I
brings up a question
understand,
I
but-
have. So I agree. Moving it to the 35 will give teams the incentive to see if they can do better by just covering.
Right.
But how do you think that new alignment worked last year? Do you think they think that was a success, or are they re-looking at that and, on the the kickoff alignment?
Well, I think there were more returns for touchdowns, right? Did that go back up?
I think it was
that
about the
up
same,
a little
wasn't
bit.
it?
I
And-
heard them
and
on the radio. I didn't look at the
I
numbers.
think they may have
because-
been physically more. I think there were 7 kickoff returns for touchdowns, and I think that number might have risen, but the number of returns rose dramatically because of where they placed the touchback. So I think now that they're moving it out to the 35, I think people that are sort of looking at this are right, forecasting that will lead to even more returns, because 35 that's pretty good field position
Yeah.
to just hand over. So
I always look at
Yeah.
it as 100%. Field is 100%. So that 35% of the work's already been done for
Yeah.
you. That's a lot.
It's like
you know?
65% left
Yeah,
to go.
Yeah.
A lot.
Fred's like an MIT professor over there.
Math. I heard Felger and Maslow talking a little bit about this. I thought Jim Murray had an interesting point of view, because he still felt like the kickoff is still headed for death, like that this is still going to be a part of the game that's eventually eliminated. But if you're going to have more returns this year, it seems like it's going to grow a little
Yeah,
bit.
unless guys start getting hurt a lot.
That's what I was going to say, right? That's how you. That
I
was the
don't
only way to
like,
reverse
and I
it.
know that drives the whole thing. It's all about player safety, and and that's the reasoning for the new alignment. I don't really like the new alignment, but if it's worked, and I'm not talking about worked in terms of the returns, because I don't think that's why it worked. I don't think that alignment led to more returns. Much like this year, moving it out to the 35, there's going to be probably more returns than last year. It's not because of the alignment, but I do wonder if it is keeping the players safer. If there's, to me, this 1 year isn't enough data to sort of draw that conclusion. But I don't know how you guys felt about it. I didn't. It right to the week 18, it kept looking odd to me watching it.
I have to admit that when they first announced this new thing, I had it a little wrong. I thought that the line of scrimmage was actually going to be closer to where the receiver catches the ball. Mm-hmm. So I thought the two teams, the receiving team and the kicking team, were going to be closer, like at around the 20, and then so the kicker had to the what do they call it, the drop zone or something like that.
Yep.
That zone was actually a smaller
landing zone. Yeah,
landing
drop
zone.
Yeah.
That was actually a smaller bucket that the kicker had to kick into, and so so that the receiver was closer to where the kicking team was, and it was almost like a play from the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
The difference was obviously that no one can move until the receiver has the ball, possesses the ball, and then I thought. So blocking schemes would come more into play because it would look like more of a normal play from scrimmage. So I was off. So when they actually did it, it's like, oh, the landing zone is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, and the kicking team is a lot further away from the receiver than I thought they were going to be.
I feel similar, Fred. I feel like I thought there was going to be experimentation, different things, maybe reverses. I didn't know how crazy it was going to get, but I remember being in training camp when we were first starting to watch these things and being like, what are they going to do? Our team's going to spring things? And it never felt like anything was sprung. Everyone approached it straightforward, and yes, it did yield better results.
Because remember,
but
I'm sure it wasn't just our team. Like, we're allowed to film certain things during practice in the summer, but we weren't allowed to film that. Yeah. And I was thinking, every team must be preparing for, like you said, special things. And
7 guys going different ways and a flip and
nothing,
like none of that ever.
I didn't see anything really manifest along those lines.
Yeah. And I guess you guys have you have more of a life than I do, because I had seen some of these kickoffs in those other leagues, whether it was the XFL or the UFL, I forget which one, but I had seen, and not necessarily knowing every parameter off the top of my head, but it's an odd look the way they're lined up, and they're 5 yards apart, so that's obviously eliminating the collisions. That's what they're looking to get out of it. Listen, if it's going to keep the kickoff in the game this way, and the old way was going to eliminate it, then I guess I'm for it. It just looks odd to me still.
Yeah. See, what I would do, like I said, I would put them right at a line of scrimmage at the 20. So there's no 5 yards apart. So you're still eliminating the collisions. They're right there at a line of scrimmage. The receiver is within the landing zone of 20 yards, and he can be wherever he is within that 20 yards. And the kicker has to drop it in inside.
Well, the kicker has to drop it in there, but you're saying the tacklers are closer.
They're closer
when he catches it.
So it's more, it's just like a regular play where instead of the ball snap, as soon as he catches the ball, boom, let's go.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and you might be able to crease it a little bit more,
Right.
More frequently.
Right.
A little more of a running play almost.
It's more like a running play, right? Yeah. So I don't know. Anyway,
I thought it was interesting that Springer brought up, back to the players that I was talking today, Marcus Jones, which something, you guys know how I feel about Marcus Jones and his return ability. I think he is electric in that regard, and I think that's an underutilized asset to not have him with the ball as many times as you can in those situations. Sounds like Springer is open to that possibility. I don't think he returned any kicks last year, right? For the last 2 years. I don't know why you wouldn't want to try to get the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
You could throw a screen pass to him to try to get the ball in his hands, but you don't want to kick off.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that Springer is right about that, and we see a little bit more of Marcus Jones as a return man.
Yep, that would be good. He's like you said, he's electric.
Get him involved. I mean, the more ways possible. Interesting to see how this, Josh. What does Josh do with Marcus Jones now? I mean, it's got a little bit of intrigue there for me.
Yep. What else? We got, your show making a big deal about this Milton trade, and
I am a little surprised with how almost every show has made a big deal. I guess we're in the minority about that trade. I think a lot of people really feel like this was a wasted asset.
Well, listen. If you waited longer and he lit it up in preseason, might you have been able to get more? Maybe.
What if he played like he did last preseason?
Right.
Could have hurt his start.
Right. So there's a chance that you could have. But this whole thing that, they're worried about, Drake May as being a diva. I doubt very much that Drake May was, you got to get rid of him. What I think, and we talked about it, what I think more likely is what happened is Milton and or his agent were like forcing the issue. Like we want to guarantee that we're going to have a chance to compete for the starting job because we might think we're better than Drake May, or we want to go to a team that's going to give us an opportunity. And I think that's what's happened. And I think Vrabel, he's like, you know what? I don't need that. I don't think it was Drake May. I think it was Mike Vrabel saying, I don't need to deal with this. I'm going to, this chirping that, you want to guarantee that you're going to have a chance to compete for the starting job. No, that's not what we're going to do. So see you later.
Yeah.
I think this was a Vrabel thing saying, I don't need that noise. I'm starting out here. We want guys who, want to compete, but they're not going to be a distraction.
I think most people think that. But the question is, does he think that because he wanted to make it easier for May or not? I don't think anybody thinks May went to the Patriots and said, you need to get rid of him.
Your show was insinuating that,
they do
the
not.
word diva came up many times.
But they keep saying, and I listened yesterday afternoon. This is why I know, because I had to leave early yesterday, so I caught a lot of them.
Yeah.
And they kept saying that's the way that these reports are seeming to make it sound, is that this was to clear the decks for Drake May. And Felger several times said, I don't know that's to be true, but that's the way the reporting is making this sound.
Yeah.
But they were quick to say that we have no evidence that Drake May's a diva, but they're making it sound like this was...
we're saying it over and over again.
Because I do think it's odd that a lot of the different reports have sort of indicated this was to clear out the quarterback room.
Right.
Which I don't really understand. I kind of agree with, and you know that I do not always agree with those two bozos that love to torture me. If I were Drake May, I don't care. Now, if to me, this is more about Joe Milton.
Yeah.
I think Joe Milton probably orchestrated this trade. He probably asked to be traded.
Yeah.
And that's, again, I'm not reporting that. That's my feeling, is that he probably wanted to go to a place where he felt he would have a chance. Why he wanted to go to Dallas, where he has less of a chance there than here.
Yeah.
Because they have a $60 million quarterback who's at least a year, if not more, away from losing his job.
Sure. And I think, you've got a team it's going to be 90 guys in camp, but eventually 53 guys. Chances are over the course of the season that everybody on this team is happy all the time are very minimal. But if I'm Vrabel, I'm not starting out with a disgruntled guy. I'm just not going to start out that way. And you're not that good that I'm going to deal with it. So goodbye.
Yeah, I don't fault Joe Milton at all for wanting a chance. He's an older prospect.
Sure.
He's older than Joe
I have no
May.
problem with it.
I don't fault Joe Milton either. I'm
no
with you,
problem.
Mike.
And I just go back to when they drafted him, when we were on the draft show. I remember the reactions, especially from Paul and Evan, being like, I hate it. Why are we doing this to Drake? Why are we going to have a guy hanging over his head? I'm a fan of always drafting a quarterback. I just don't in the same year, especially when you took a guy third overall. So I get what Vrabel's probably doing. I don't fault Milton getting the chance, and I still think they're going to have to add to the room, but good luck, Joe Milton. Go for it and move on.
And people have brought up the compare. Well, Brady wanted to be the starter. I'm sure he did, and I'm sure he thought he eventually would be. But I don't remember him saying. I don't remember him making a fuss. Like
I don't think there's really any evidence that Drake May drove this.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is, we think Milton might have.
Right.
But back then, Brady was. There was never any reports of Brady being disgruntled.
Right.
And
You mean as a starter or as a backup?
No, as a backup.
Well, he never really was the backup.
Well, right.
He was the fourth-string quarterback, and then he was the starter.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, literally, in the middle of the second game.
Yeah. No, but
he spent one game as the
you're
backup.
right, but I've heard people say, well, you don't think Brady wanted to be the starter or thought he could be the I'm sure he did, but he there was never any, any of this stuff.
But put it through the context of today, where Joe Milton went to 2 colleges. Brady was at Michigan the whole time. If this is now Brady was at Michigan, Brady wouldn't have stayed at Michigan if he was sitting behind Drew Henson there and wasn't getting an opportunity.
Right, he would have transferred.
He would have gone somewhere else. It's also a different mindset now for these quarterbacks.
Like, every guy should want to play. And
So I'm glad you brought up Brady, though, because this is one part that I will push back on the two guys, Mike and Tony, yesterday. Bill wouldn't have made this trade. Bill wouldn't have done that.
The hell he wouldn't.
Unless Milton had done something. Their insinuation was unless Milton had done something to Belichick, like asking for more money or been a pain to Belichick. It's not the same, and I'm not claiming it's the same, but how long did Bledsoe stay after he lost his job?
Not long.
End of the season, he was out.
The next year he was gone.
Yeah.
Because that's a potential distraction.
Right.
Yeah.
That you don't need.
Right. Plus, you could get a first-round pick for him.
No, that's why it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not the same. And I'm not pretending it's the same.
Yeah.
It's a much different story. It's a $100 million quarterback who had already established himself as a Super Bowl caliber quarterback who was a multiple-time Pro Bowler. It's not the same as Joe Milton.
Wow.
Like, you should have been able to handle Joe Milton. I get it. But to me, the crux is a potential distraction. I want to avoid any possible problems before they arise. And I think Bill, he easily could have said, well, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have Drew Bledsoe around as my backup.
Right.
If he thought it could be a perfect utopia world.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But he knows that that's not going to be something that's going to sit well with Drew, so he moves him.
Right.
Just like I don't think Mike thought this would sit well with Joe Milton.
Right.
So we moved him.
Right.
Again, it's not the same, but it's not all that much different either.
Yeah. It's avoiding unnecessary distractions.
Right.
And like I said, if Milton was a little bit better, maybe, but he's not that good. And it's
There's a
not
lot of
worth it.
people that are worried about that too.
Like he'll become
Like that,
good.
I saw it. He's the best.
Well,
Who's
as long
to say
as-
he's not better than?
As long as May is good too, then fine.
But if he's better, people.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a small percentage. This is a little bit of a Felger straw man.
Yeah.
It's a small percentage, but people think there's a chance that he's better than May,
well, listen,
based on what they saw in the last
if
game.
he is, he is, and it'll be
then it's
it'll be
it's a misstep.
It'll
if that's
go
what
down
happens.
as something.
It
that-
happens.
Yeah, it does.
I'd be very surprised if that happens,
Me
but
too.
it happens.
Like
Me
Dak
too.
gets hurt, Milton gets in. He's Drake
he
never
lights it
hits
up.
the lit.
Right.
What if Dak has gotten seriously hurt, 2 of the last 3 years or 3 of the last 4 years, something like that. So if Joe Milton goes in, and I do agree with you, Mike. I think you made great points about Milton's mindset too. As an older prospect who spent 6 years in college, probably can't afford to spend 2-3 years with no chance to compete.
Right.
You know?
Maybe some spot starts for Drake May here and there if he gets hurt, but wait till he gets the end of his rookie deal and then someone decides to pay him. In a perfect world, he'd light it up in the preseason. But
I do think he had a better chance of playing here in 2025 than he does in Dallas.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think the chance is high either place, but
Well,
it's a young rookie who got knocked out of a couple of games last year.
Yeah.
Now you're banking on another serious injury for Dak Prescott, which is possible. Like I said, I think he had that, like, the dislocated ankle thing, like maybe 3 years ago, and then last year he missed, I think, eight or 9 games. He missed half the season last year. That's why the Cowboys stunk.
Yeah.
But is he the backup? I mean, if he's the backup to Dak, he's not getting probably beyond Dobbs here. So, I mean, does he go from third string here to second string there? Does Dallas trust him that much?
Maybe. I don't know. Is Will Greer ahead of him or not? I don't know.
That's the
to
other
me,
guy.
like the Dallas part of it, it's typical Jerry Jones.
Oh, yeah.
Because Cooper Rush was going to cost money.
Yeah.
So they let him walk. Trey Lance was going to cost money, so they let him walk. And they bring in a guy he's not even making $1 million as a rookie contract, a sixth-round pick. He's making what? 900?
Right, something like that.
950. He's probably not even making $1 million base
the
salary.
minimum.
Yeah. So to me, that reeks of Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing I just can't shake, and that's why I always like to draft a quarterback every year, is it's just that insurance. It's like having another young prospect to push, because ultimately I don't think Patriot fans care if it's Drake May or Joe Milton or who. They just want the next great quarterback, and you want to give yourself as many bites at that apple as you can get. That's why, again, I think I re-looked at a lot of these quarterback prospects, because I think this year you got to, put another one in that pipeline and get another arm in camp for sure.
Yeah, I think your point is good, Mike, but I also would say, I would just add, if I were in charge of a team, I would rather my backup quarterback be developed that way than having to sign Jacoby Brissett and then Joshua Dobbs. And spending, it's modest money comparatively, but, $8 million on Brissett, right? There's another $5 million for Dobbs, I think, this year. I'd rather have my backup quarterback making $900,000.
Yeah. Right.
Which is the reason why I want to do the Mike thing.
Yeah.
That Green Bay did forever.
Yeah.
And, like we've rattled off the names back in the 90s.
Yep.
When Ron Wolf used to do this all the time, and he would, he never held anybody up to get rid of Matt Hasselbeck or
Flynn.
Ty Detmer or Mark Brunell. He didn't get anything for Flynn. Flynn left as a free agent. But he was able to develop these backup quarterbacks for, cheap money, cheap dollars, and then you're able to flip them for the, probably the similar pick that you got for them, that you used on them.
But in the meantime,
But
got
in the
a backup.
meantime, you have backups that are young and affordable and developing in your system. I think, to Mike's point, it's good business.
Yeah, it's also, I think I just like the dynamic of the room. Bringing, now that Drake's a year removed, bring a young rookie in. It helps Drake probably to set an example for a younger guy. And as much as he was drafted ahead of Milton, there was always that kind of vibe, I would imagine. I kind of felt it of just like, because Milton's such a presence, right? Like, I always just felt like, yeah, Drake's a guy, but man, Milton's standing right there.
That's the part of it
that,
like if they had, and I can't even think of the guys that got drafted late last year now off the top of my head, but if they had drafted,
average size pocket quarterback guy,
the Tulane kid, Pratt.
Okay, yeah.
Remember him?
Yep.
Kind of liked him.
Yeah.
If they had drafted him in day 3, I wouldn't have gone on the rant that I went on Mike's right about the stature, and sort of it's almost like a mythological presence that Joe Milton has. He has this incredible set of gifts, skills.
Yeah.
With the size, the arm, the strength. I mean, people think he can be a tight end. He's that kind of athlete.
Yeah.
That's not the same as just like, well, you're going to take a flyer on a guy in the 6th round,
Right.
and maybe he's our third quarterback.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he's out there doing backflips and stuff, and
you
you're like,
knew this
all
guy
right.
was going to create attention because of his unbelievable skill set.
I was okay with creating attention and fans loving him, but if he starts like being a nuisance himself, then it's time to go.
But I don't even think he was a nuisance. It was a problem, and he needed to go.
Yeah.
Because people are now seeing, like, he can do this. He made that throw on the sideline. Oh, did you see the backflip? Like, things that aren't important.
Yeah.
Things that are unimportant, they're just unbelievable athletic gifts that he has.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reaction, too, though, is just it goes back to camp last year when early on, before even moved to 11 on 11, we were getting reports on this is a real quarterback competition, and Joe Milton had the throw of the day, and
You got report on that.
You were
Report.
setting
Boston Globe.
it all up last summer.
I remember it well.
And then went into hibernation, You kind of forgot about
when
him.
he played in the preseason games. Do you remember, he was okay in the first one. I think it was Houston, the first one here. The other two.
Well, he was running around.
One of them in particular was one of the worst quarterback performances I've ever watched in a preseason game. So he was. I thought he was pretty bad in the preseason last year, but then the last game he played incredibly well. I don't care who he played against. That's a big part of the story. But
what their effort level was.
But didn't have a lot of resistance.
But he played well. He still had to make the throw.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, he showed off his arm.
That laser he threw. Oh my!
The one that didn't count is the most impressive throw ever.
Draft talk, draft wins, news, whatever you want to call it. Travis Hunter was talking yesterday, and I mean,
back in.
He's like, I want to play every down, both sides of the ball. I can do it. He claims he can do it.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. I heard a clip.
Do you like that? Him saying that?
Sure, I like him saying it. I don't think I would do it, but I would try to ramp up to it. I mean, why not?
See, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but just not as a rookie.
Yeah.
I want him to learn something first.
Yeah.
That's why.
One or the other, whatever one you think he's better at. I want him to learn that trade first.
Yeah.
And then if you think, okay, he's established himself, he has this. Let's put more on his plate, and then if he can play both ways, more power to him.
So I think the bonus is, I mean, if he came here, we've discussed plenty. I think it makes sense to start him at wide receiver. It's just biggest position in need, and that's where I think he's got probably the most learning to do. But I think by teaching him that position and learning the nuances of NFL route running and play design and those things, as he learns that, it's also going to inform him on the other side of the ball. And then you start, I would start to, get his feet wet. I wouldn't go back to what I said originally where let's play him on third down, both sides of the ball. I think he's a wide receiver, probably not an every down wide receiver, at least to start. But, then you start getting him in on some third downs, play him inside. Look, we're not going to just man him up on somebody. We're going to use him as a little bit of a chess piece. And it's not, make it so he doesn't have to think too much. But
right.
You got to get that athleticism.
No,
on
I
the field.
would, if I took him, I would definitely start him at wide receiver, through the spring, in the summer. As much see how he's doing there, and if I see, okay, this is where he should belong, you keep him there, and then if not, then you start to convert him back to cornerback.
You just hope that.
But you have to start him at wide receiver. That's just where he can make more of an impact.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good argument. I was going to ask you which one you think would be harder to learn.
I think wide receiver.
So I think corner.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I think there's so much that goes into it, playing within the system.
Well, I was going to say the same thing about wide receiver.
The offense is just route running. You just have to learn, to run a little bit more precise routes. But, I know it's more to that. I know I'm simplifying it. I don't know. I think you can make an argument either way.
I think
not one I'm going to get into a knockdown drag out with you.
Because you can also just go with that guy, follow him, cover him. That's it. That's the play.
Well, but
it very rarely gets done like that anymore.
There's zone versus man.
Knowing where your help is,
and all that
nuances
stuff.
and then learning the receivers that you're covering. It's not like college where you're covering a plumber.
Yeah, right.
You're covering, quality guys that can make you look bad.
Plus all the communication on defense that has to happen before the snap. there is communication offensively. They've changed the play. You might have to adjust their route. But
the offense is trying to create confusion.
Right.
So
stress that.
Yeah.
You got to know quick. And
right.
So the other thing that I thought was interesting,
hard.
I heard a clip from Mike Mayock yesterday, old friend Mike Mayock.
What's he doing now?
I don't know, but he was doing talking about some draft positions, and he had mentioned that wide receiver and tackle were the two positions that have him sort of the most flummoxed. But he talked about wide receiver at length. I heard a long clip that they played on Felger and Maz, and he talked about it's not a great year for wide receivers, which we already knew, but he said there's only a couple of guys that he thinks are really first round. And he mentioned McMillan. He mentioned Matthew Golden. And I think he mentioned Luther Burden.
Yep.
Never mentioned Travis Hunter as a wide receiver. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he was just omitting him.
Yeah.
Or if he felt like he's more of a corner.
That had to be an omission, but I don't know.
Is
he still doing top 5 with 10 people on it?
Probably, yeah. Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say I think in the receivers you can get traits. They're guys' traits. The all-around potential guys doesn't really seem like there's that.
And he had mentioned specifically, Michael, that when I'm serious,
very formal.
He doesn't think there's anywhere near the amount of sort of day 2 gems that there have been, say, the last 4 or 5 years
at receiver.
Yeah.
There's some speed guys. Kyler Williams from Washington State's a guy Evan and I were talking about. We've talked about Isaiah Bond from Texas too. That to me is what intrigues me just for this Patriots group, where I think they're running 9-10 guys deep right now. Is I just love to get a burner. Like, give me a burner. He doesn't have to be big. He doesn't have to be the most polished route runner or anything like that. But just love to see some guy with some straightaway speed, just to try to get that element, into the offense.
Yeah, I guess. He's got to be just more than just fast, though, because we had that.
No, they need someone who can play, and
Yeah.
I'm a little worried that it doesn't sound like there's a lot of these guys. Like I don't know if there are going to be the A.J. Browns and the Terry McLaurins and those guys coming out of day 2 of the draft that are going to be impact players, based on it's just Mike Mayock. I'm not sure that
Clellan Ferrell, was that one of his?
He had some bad drafts. He had some bad drafts with the Raiders.
I always really liked him, and then when he went to the Raiders, then I'm like, who's this guy picking now? Like, I don't.
Would you change the draft to allow teams to draft futures? So in other words, draft a guy, reserve a guy a year ahead of before he comes out.
So you could draft Arch Manning now?
Yeah.
And whenever he decides to come out, he belongs to you?
So obviously you lose the pick, basically.
Yeah.
Would you allow that?
No, but I think that's not. I don't think it's a dumb concept.
I mean,
that's how the
everybody
Celtics ended up getting Larry Bird that way.
I just wonder, is everybody eligible? Like, you can go off the beaten path for
Yeah,
anyone you want. Hey,
it's Fred's theory,
Jeremiah
so.
Smith
I
at
guess-
Ohio
I
State.
guess- I guess
I might
the-
wait 2 years for him, but
I guess the danger of that would be, okay, so once Arch Manning gets future draft by the Patriots, he doesn't want to play anymore. He's like faking injuries so that he doesn't get hurt in his college career, and he saves himself for the pros. I don't know.
Well, what if you drafted it? I mean, could you do him like in a 6th-round pick? Like, I'm going to take I'm going to take this, and now he's slotted as a 6th-round pick.
Right.
You'd have to fix that.
You have to fix that.
It'd have to only be first round.
Take some flyers. I'm just going to take some flyers. I'll take a 7th-round flyer on Jeremiah Smith.
In the 7th round every year, I would take a guy who I think is going to be really good in 2 years.
So the caveat would be,
what's the Ohio State guy, Ryan?
I remember
the 2 wide receivers. It's Alabama and Ohio State.
Williams.
Ryan Williams.
Yeah.
I think he might. He's the Alabama
He's the
guy.
17-year-old.
No,
Yeah,
Jeremiah
well,
Smith's
was.
They're both.
Ohio State guy. Yeah.
And Jeremiah
Yeah.
Smith.
So it has to be
And
reserved.
Ryan-
You have to use
yeah.
a first-round pick on it.
Okay.
So
For the future.
you're deferring a first-round pick for whenever this guy graduates or
I mean,
decides
but once
to
you get
declare.
going, Fred, the first round's going to be kind of like everybody's already drafted. You just have the guys who broke out their senior year, or that would probably be.
But
where,
I don't hate it.
I don't think it's the worst thing because if your team's like, oh, we have to wait, but now there's this anticipation for this kid to finally be done with his college
Well, if you
career.
were the Giants
And
right
it
now,
opens
wouldn't you
it up
take
for-
Arch Manning?
Yeah, sure, right.
At 3?
Right. And it opens it up for other teams to get access to guys who they normally
Especially
wouldn't.
if Travis Hunter goes 2, right? So now the Giants have to take Abdul Carter, quote unquote, have to, and they have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. We're going to take Arch Manning.
Right.
That wouldn't be a terrible pick.
Right.
I kind of like your idea.
And then if a guy ends up not being that good in college,
Hey,
too bad.
Buyer beware.
That's
You
what
took
I
your
know. Well,
chance.
that's what I was going to say. Is sometimes guys have bad senior years, right?
Right.
And their stock goes down. And you're like,
Right.
oh, can you believe they wasted the 3rd overall pick on Arch Manning? He
bad.
barely played.
Right.
Now, when it comes
you get Len biased.
when it comes time to draft, you can trade that draft if you want, but you could be stuck with the person.
Yeah. I'm reminded of old Bobby Orr stories of when they'd sign amateur players to just random kids and then he signed with this team, but then he went and signed with that. He's already been on 3 teams before he's even played in the NHL.
Well, didn't the Celtics get Bird a year early?
You just never listen to me.
Yeah.
I legitimately just said that.
I didn't hear me.
I said that's how the Celtics got
Processing.
Bird. Now, it was a little different because the rules at the time were you were draft eligible once you're graduating class of when you entered college. He had spent 4 years in college, but because he transferred from Indiana to Indiana State, he had to sit out a year. Back then, that didn't happen all the time the way it does now. So he was in his 5th year after his high school, so he was eligible after the 4th year.
Right.
And Red said, well, we're going to take him.
Yeah.
Still on episode 1. I'll get to the other part.
I got to
Yeah.
watch that tonight.
Yeah,
I'll watch the
I
next
think I'm up
episode.
to date except for this week's.
I didn't see last night's yet.
Yeah. The problem with it is that we're talking about Celtic City now. It's the documentary by The Ringer and Bill Simmons. They never talk about the season. They go right to the postseason. You know, there's never any talk about what transpired during the season. And I'm thinking to myself, all they're doing is reinforcing the narrative that the NBA regular season doesn't count. You know, it doesn't matter.
Plus, I don't think that they get into enough. They, here and there a little bit, but I don't think they get enough of the sort of relationships among those teams, the players.
Yeah.
You know, they talk a little bit about McHale and Bird and how, they
I didn't
weren't
know that
always
Parrish
best
didn't
friends.
like Bird.
Oh, well, he got mad at him.
Yeah. 'Cause you don't mess with people's money.
Yeah, I didn't know that story either. That was one of the instances that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
You know, I want to know things that weren't readily available.
Right.
You know, I can open up pro basketball reference and do an account of the 1984 season. I
Right.
remember what happened. That's
Right.
all they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, I'd rather have those kinds of stories where Parrish was holding out, he wanted more money, and Bird said something to the effect of, if he doesn't come
wanna
back,
be here,
we have plenty of guys, we have plenty of talent on the
Right.
bench.
And that's kind of an unwritten
and
rule.
Parrish
that's an
did not
unwritten
take
rule
too kindly
among
to that.
professional athletes is you don't mess with another guy's
And then Bird
money.
got in a fight against Dr. J, and he was kind of getting attacked from the back by Moses Malone, and Parrish just stood there and watched.
Right.
And he explained why he was really mad at Larry at the time.
Yeah.
I thought Parrish was pretty good in that documentary itself. You don't see you don't hear a lot from Parrish. He was
Right.
such a quiet guy when he played.
Right.
You know, you hear a lot of stories from McHale.
Well, he was too busy
whatnot.
getting FedEx packages.
Yeah, that's true. Chief.
All right.
Yep, that Celtics Minute brought to you by.
Yeah. So players continue with their off-season workouts today. We'll have a little bit more on social media from that as well. When's the first time that media gets access to anything?
May.
Yeah.
Mike, you might know this date.
Yeah, it's a little bit of May. But I mean,
20?
I don't know. Maybe will we get a glimpse?
Oh,
at
will we get the
minicamp?
rookie? Will we get
'Cause
rookie
we did get
minicamp?
that last year, but
Maybe.
I don't know if we're getting that this year. It hasn't been explicitly said.
Yeah,
but
it could be earlier than that.
there
yeah.
are 3 OTA
early
days
May.
starting in mid-May, I think. was
Yeah,
what
the
it was.
rookies.
But
The
that
rookies
rookie
will
camp
have-
would be the first weekend after usually.
After the draft.
Yeah.
So early May, I would say.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
It will be cool.
Late April, early May.
It's coming fast. It's unbelievable how close the draft is already.
I wonder how much the formula is going to change. I didn't really notice a lot of changes last year from Bill to Gerard. Still seemed like the mechanics of practice generally kind of felt similar to me, but Vrabel, he's got his own thing. He's doing his own thing.
I just thought there was a
wonder what it's
lot.
gonna be like.
I thought there was a long ramp up to practice most days before they actually did anything.
Mm-hmm.
That was one difference I saw with Mayo last year. I felt like, a lot of people made a lot of the fact that this was a really hard camp because of the actual amount of time they were out on the field. But I didn't think they spent a lot of that time actually practicing.
Yeah.
There was a lot of positional drills, the warm-up. It seemed like 45 minutes to an hour before they did anything pretty much every day.
Well, a lot of your people yesterday were.
I mean, you people.
One of them, Bedard.
Yeah.
Pointing out that Gerard could have started early last year and decided not to because
some of us were ahead of the curve on that
because they, he didn't feel they were on the same page. Listen, I'm not going to be a fraud. At the time, I'm like, if he doesn't think the coaches are ready yet, then good. Don't start yet. Don't bring the players into the building and you don't know what the hell you're doing yet. That said, okay, why don't you know what the hell you're doing? But it took them a long time to get that staff together. They were behind the 8 ball from the beginning.
Yeah, I'm not telling you that they were wrong for being behind.
Right, but
I'm
why were
telling
they
you it was
behind?
troubling that they were behind. That was my point at the time.
You see red flags pretty quick, Paul. That was a red flag, and there were probably a couple more examples of that from last season that I feel like you see it, boom, that's a red flag right there. And I'm like,
I
is
heard
it
my
though?
buddy
Is
Bighead
it?
was talking about this yesterday, like this time last year. There's already one thing that's going on now that he likes more than, and that was it.
Right.
And and I'm not picking on you because I know
No,
that
it's
you
fine.
argue with me because that's what we're contractually obligated to do.
That's
you and I.
fine.
But you have an opportunity to start 2 weeks before everybody else, and you just said, no, we're going to punt on that. We're not going to. Even if you could have just gotten together. Okay, we're not really ready for it yet. Get him in.
Go lift.
Yeah, right.
Go do something.
Right.
You can have a meeting.
Yeah.
Because you can't do really anything on the field yet anyway.
No.
Right.
I mean, do you see, we have a little outline of all the things you can do. And people, this is not telling tales out of school. It's all available out there online for anybody who wants to know. You can't even, catch like the defense can't catch a pass from something. Like you can't intercept a pass. You can't do anything.
Right.
Like it's not football yet. You're just sort of getting acclimated to a new program, a new system.
But what you said, that Vrabel's really setting his own tone and doing it his own way. We did get some really, really, really good access yesterday that we're not putting out yet, but it's going to be part of a longer form video that we'll release after the draft. And I can't wait for people to see it. You're right. Yeah. There are things that Vrabel is doing that it's like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. You can see how he's immediately putting his thumbprint on the team. And we've been given that access. So you'll see that after the draft in the longer form documentary that we release.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Behind
Good
the scenes.
stuff.
Yep. All right. So that's that.
Mike, you thought Kyle Duggar looked a little thinner yesterday.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I was getting ready to head out the door yesterday, and I got my phone lights up. Mike Reese. I'm like, well, I got to answer this one. And he's like, Deuce, I'm looking for someone as crazy as me. I'm trying to go through your footage here to see which players are coming in the video that we put out. And so but we both we didn't quite get Diggs at first because he was a little bundled up. We got him, but Kyle Duggar, we weren't sure at first, but he seems like he might have lost a little weight maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's part of guys trying to fit the scheme better, getting lighter, getting faster. Maybe I got to get a look up close of him. Maybe he was just bundled up. He's always kind of a wiry guy anyway. He's not the thickest, but yeah, it seemed like maybe he'd slim down a little bit.
Better than the other way around.
Yeah, better than.
Well,
we
and
had
then
some of that last year too.
and if he was coming off the injury, remember that you didn't know how much off-season work he was going to be able to do, but it looks like that wasn't an issue.
In shape.
Yeah.
All right, 855-PATS-500 is the hotline. Podcasts at Patriots.com is the email address. So let's hear what's on people's minds. We'll start on the hotline. We'll go to Randy, who's in Providence. What's up, Randy?
Hey, so I wanted to talk draft with you guys for a moment here. I know I heard you talking about the wide receiver class earlier, and I kind of couldn't disagree more with what you were saying. I think the meat of this wide receiver class is on day 2, in that second and third round. And I think there's some very direct comparisons between the 2019 wide receiver class and this one. Like,
so, Randy, can I just stop you for one quick second? I just want to this was what Mike Mayock said. I was parroting what Mike Mayock said about the draft. One man's opinion. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, look at Mike Mayock's draft history.
Yeah, no, it's not good.
That's all you need to say.
Not good with the Raiders, absolutely.
But no, I think like if you look at the 2019 wide receiver class, there are you had Marquise Brown who jumped up into the first round when he ran the 4.27 at the combine, right? Very similar to Matthew Golden, jumped up into the first round, really when he ran the 4.29.
That was one of the guys Mayock had a first round grade for, Golden.
Yeah, but he wasn't super special in college, right? Like he only got into the first wide receiver slot at Texas when Bond went down. And then you got N'Keal Harry in that 2019 draft. I think he's got very similar comparisons to T-Mac, personally. Then like you look at deeper into the second round, A.J. Brown, Trey Harris, DK Metcalf, Jaden Higgins. There's a lot of direct comparisons, I think, and I think the meat of this draft is in the second and third round. I think some of the better mock drafts that I've seen for us have them going with like a Will Campbell first and then Jaden Higgins second. But I wanted to ask you about that because I do see people in scenarios trading back, and I think that's great, to be able to draft Will Campbell. But do you think particularly maybe in the first year of a new administration, if you will, there's value in saying we're taking you with the top 5 pick because this is the type of player that we want and that sort of thing,
Mike?
I mean, I think I follow.
Thanks,
you
Randy.
mean I'm guessing he's saying as Will Campbell's kind of demeanor and leadership and drafting him more for intangibles, like, I just think you have to hit this pick. It has to be a really good player. It has to be a guy. I love Will Campbell's intangibles, but I don't think you can draft 4th overall with like your main drive being, well, he's a good guy. He's going to be good for the program. He's Vrabel's kind of guy. I think that's a nice key, but
I think
talent. We need
if
talent.
everything else is equal, that could tip you over.
You want to tell me that they think Will Campbell's the left tackle and they believe in him and he's going to play there and it'd be a shock to them. that he be a guard, then sign me up for that.
Yep.
But if there's some question, I think everybody's in this similar boat where you take a trade down. You'd love to have a trade down. You'd love to go to the Raiders at 6. I know a lot of people talking about the Saints at 9. I don't know how realistic it is that people are going to trade up to 4 for Shedeur Sanders, but that's what you're probably hoping on. Otherwise, there's some risk at 4 if it's not Carter Hunter. There's going to be questions. There's going to be some kind of, well, is this going to work out? Are you sure? With just about anybody you take.
Chad writes in, says, I'm hearing opening arguments about Milton, and I think you all may be missing the point. It's not that he's gone for most fans. It's that we didn't get enough for the trade. Well that's what was offered.
Yeah, like, so this is what happens when these reports come out about they had offers for more. Like what? What was it?
Right.
Like, this is why, and I know you get mad at me, Fred, when I do this, but this is why, like, when Chris Godwin re-signs with Tampa, and then everybody just runs with the fact that he was offered far more money by the Patriots. Well, was he really? Or was it
Well, in that case, he was.
the chance to make more?
Yeah, right.
Or non-guaranteed more? Like, he actually got more guaranteed from Tampa, but you were willing to give him $130 million. They were only giving him $100 million, but their $100 million was guaranteed. Yours what? Like, that's not more. Like, I need to know specifics when you're telling me that they turned down, because I don't believe they turned down anything significantly more than what they got. This is a guy who last year got drafted in the 190s.
Yeah.
He played one game against practice squad players.
Milton.
And now he's all of a sudden worth
Right.
what? A 6th-round pick is what you got for him. You swap from the 7th round to the 5th round.
Yeah.
That's basically the equivalent of a 6th-rounder. That's what you got for him. That's what you paid for him.
Right.
I don't believe that they had an offer for like a 2nd-round pick that they turned down
If that's
because they wanted to honor his wishes to go to
If
Dallas.
that's true, then somebody should get fired.
Then by all means,
Right.
criticize away.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Yeah. Prove it to me, and then okay, I'm with you. But I don't think they had a better offer.
Maybe someone offered him a higher pick swap than that.
Right.
Maybe.
Right. Maybe
I don't even believe that, but maybe.
Maybe it was higher in the 5th round, perhaps. But other than that, I doubt sincerely that they turned down significantly more than they got.
Maybe they could have gotten him for a 5th rounder and not having to give up the 7th rounder.
Yep.
That would be more, right?
Yep.
I think anybody who actually watched Joe Milton in training camp last year and watched all of his performance in preseason and then watched him in that final game, we're all on the same page. At some point, some of these reports made everybody believe that he's a 3rd-round pick, and we've never seen it on the field. I've never seen that. He doesn't look like — he looks like a 6th-round pick. He looks like a guy who needs time to develop. He made strides clearly in that last game, but
all right. Andrew's in Portland, Maine. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for taking the call. First time, long time. You guys kept me laughing for years and years and years. I never call, but I always listen.
Thank you.
I just wanted to give a quick thank you for the laughs. The Harvey Lange line, Fred, from last show, still has me going. So just wanted to say thank you for that.
It's my pleasure.
What I have for you is I'm sick of the draft, mock drafts. I've looked through them all. My question is for Deuce. When do we get the new uniforms?
tomorrow probably. I think that's what I'm working on.
A lot of talk about that. A lot of talk about new uniforms.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm excited as anybody.
People, I guess May or somebody was holding up a royal blue like a couple months ago or something. Who was that?
I think the hard thing, Fred, is that you can't do royal blue because it looks like buffalo. There's a lot of, you got to be careful these days.
At the time, okay, thanks, Andrew. Appreciate the call and you listening. At the time royal blue came out, everyone hated them. They thought they were the ugliest thing ever.
Right. Soccer stripes.
Right.
I didn't particularly like them.
I bet
nobody did.
Oh yeah.
I'm telling you.
So when they changed the uniform, I really didn't like the helmet. That was the big thing. But then they had the first year, '93. They had those blue shirts with red numbers.
Yeah.
You couldn't even
you couldn't
read them.
see them. Yeah.
Then they changed in '94. They had a white number, and the number was up on the shoulder. I kind of liked those. The following year, they changed again and had the big Elvis on the shoulder. Hated that.
Yeah.
And that's what they kind of they went through the rest of the royal blue, and that's the soccer stripes that you kind of like the rugby stripes.
Yeah, it had the dual tone stripes.
Kind of looked odd to me.
Yeah.
So I liked what they eventually went to. In 2000, that as Mike likes to call them, the championship uniform, the dynasty uniform.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I misspoke. The Dynasty uniform. I like that better, but I still like the old red and white, red, white, and blue better than anything they've done since.
All right. We'll take a break. My food's here. And when we come back, got a lot of emails coming in, a lot of different subjects. We'll get to that right after this. Whether you're in the game or betting on the game, you'll need a game plan. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the New England Patriots, provides you with everything you need to build your personal betting game plan so you can get in on all the action while practicing safe bets. Visit DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming to learn more about all the safe betting tools DraftKings has to offer. Hope is here, 800-327-5050 or gamblinghelplinema.org. Must be 21 plus. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com. Physically present in Massachusetts. See DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources.
Isn't it time to get exactly what you want? Welcome to Red Hot Deal Days from Verizon, where you get your pick of our best deals. Like My Plan, where you can pick the perks you want and save on every one. For limited time, bring your own phones to a Verizon store and you can get My Plan for our best price ever. Get exactly what you want in your phone plan and only pay for what you need. Bring your phones to your Verizon store today and get My Plan. These deals won't last. It's your Verizon.
With FedEx One Rate, you can ship to your student for a simple, predictable flat rate. Send a box full of home-baked treats that say, "Your father and I miss you." Or send a box full of instant noodles that says, "Your father and I would like you to stop asking us for money." Either way, one rate fits all. FedEx One Rate. 2-day shipping, one flat rate. Starting at $14.50. Visit FedEx.com/one-rate for details. Exclusions apply.
Really good. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Just keep this consistent during season 2. We'll go Fridays. Calling it right now. We'll do Fridays.
Working ahead.
It's the best time to do it.
Maybe we just start with the rule change that was just voted
Yeah.
on at the league meeting with the touchback going to 35.
Yeah.
How do you envision that impacting the return?
You're going to have to cover a lot more kicks. Plain and simple. I mean, you don't want the start the drive to be at 35. It was 25 2 years ago. Now at 30. Now at 35. So your odds are to cover more. And so as you're looking at the whole grand scheme of things, the kicker is going to become very important on what you can do with that guy. He's got to have a toolbox. He's got to be like a punter, right? He's got to be able to place the ball where you can put it, line drive it, corner it. That's going to be very, very important now. So I think the kicker is probably your most important weapon, then your personnel after that. But it's made a lot of change in kind of how we're going to approach this offseason, from a kicker standpoint.
Jeremy, you lost a kicker, Joey, and you still have a guy in the roster, Parker. Maybe just kind of comment on what Joey was able to do for you guys last year and what that position looks like for you guys moving forward.
Yeah, I thought Joey came in and did a great job for us in a hole that we needed. He came in and won that job last year and did some really good things for us. And I hope he does a phenomenal job at Tennessee, where he's going now with Bones. And now we're just looking, to replace a guy. And we got John Parker on the roster. He knows already that we're going to bring in somebody else. However that process is to come compete to win the job. And I fully expect Parker to embrace that, which he will. And then whoever that comes in as new to embrace that, and then a guy to come in and be great for us, come in and make all his field goals and help us win football games and also be a weapon on kickoff.
You've made the rounds at some pro days this year.
Yeah.
What are you going?
I made a lot of rounds, yeah.
What are you looking for in a kicking prospect?
Well, first and foremost, the character part of it is really important. I don't want just a kicker. I want a guy that's going to be great in the locker room, that can go out and hang out with the tight end, with Hunter Henry, go hang out with Drake May, and hang out in the locker room, hang out outside of this place. And I want a guy's guy, like an athlete overall. After that, it's the consistency through college, and or in the NFL, where it's a free agent, and or it's a college kid. It doesn't matter. I don't know who we're going to get yet. We're going through that process, but his consistency, the ball rotation, the ball flight, and now, like I just told Mike, there is the kickoff part of it. Like, he can't just be one-dimensional. He's a guy that's like, Coach, I can only kick it deep left, and it's going to be end over end. Well, when we're playing Kevontae Turpin, he's just going to run underneath that thing on the 6th kickoff and take it to the house. So those are just some of the things that I look for. But the most important thing is the character part, I think.
How do you find that in terms of that sort of creativity with the kickoffs that you're talking about? Like, is there enough of those types of examples that you can find it on tape, or do you have to work guys out, pre-draft to see if they can do those sorts of
You
things?
gotta see it. And so I'm at the pro days and the privates, or I'm working with a free agent, say he comes in for a workout. Like, they should know by now, like, what that entails, because we just had a year of it. So a lot of those guys are working on that technique now. They're working on the different types of kickoffs. They know how important it is, and I'm just not the only one seeing it, right? All the 31 coordinators want to see it as well, so they know that pretty well often now.
When you look at the draft, when it comes to the kickers, what do you see in this class? And you see guys that have draftable grades that might be options for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we've been doing. Me and my assistant coach Quinn, like, we've been checking out the guys. We've seen probably every kicker in the country, I think, by now. So we got a good foundation of what's out there, whether it's draftable or it's free agent, whatnot. And whatever process we go down when we get to draft weekend and or post draft, we'll approach it, and that's why we have a plan for all of it, right? Draft, not draft, free agent. We have a plan in place for each of those processes so that we can get the right guy in.
With the understanding that the job of kicker is kind of a transitory job, and have guys have a good year up and down, whatever they did to be. How important is it for you to maybe establish some consistency with that position? You guys have had a handful of guys through your.
Yeah, right. There's been a couple guys now, so that's very important, right? I like being the special teams coordinator here. I want to continue to do that, and finding the kicker is a very important factor in that. So I take that job very seriously, and I think it's very important. You want to build stability like they've had in the past here, right? You guys have seen it in your own eyes. A lot of stability from a kicker standpoint. Hasn't been that way in the last 2 years, so doing everything we can right now to find that piece, and it could be John Parker Romo, it could be somebody else, but whoever that is going to have to win the job come that time.
When it comes to adding a kicker, whether it be free agency, the draft, just the unique challenges that come with kicking in New England late in the year, how much do you weigh whether or not a guy has experience in inclement weather?
I weigh it in, and that's why I go work him out, because I want to see, not just off the sticks. I want to see what he does outside, or I want to throw a little pressure on the guy. But sometimes that doesn't always equate. If there's a kid that kicks in Arizona or a kid kicks in California where the weather's always nice, you can still go watch him and see how the ball rotates, how high it gets. Versus a guy might kick in Michigan, and yeah, he makes every kick, but the ball's low and it kind of curves in. That doesn't really equate to maybe a better kicker at this level. So I think the workout in person, wherever they kick in the country, I think it's just me seeing it in person is really important.
How familiar were you with Mac Hollins before he got here, and what do you think he could bring to special teams?
I don't know him at all. Never met him. Never talked to him. I've just heard nothing but great things about him. On and off the field, from other coordinators that have coached him around the league. First and foremost, I hope he comes in here and dominates the receiver, and then we're secondary. I want him to come in here and play offense and do the best he can on offense. And if we're going to use him on special teams, then we use him. But if not, then that's okay. If he's dominating on offense, we're a better team because of it.
Jeremy, with the new kickoff, and especially covering the new kickoffs with close proximity of kickoff team, the guys were blocking them on return. Maybe a different body type today than a couple of years ago when guys were charging downfield in terms of personnel?
Yeah, you're definitely using a few more bigger bodies, tight ends, and outside linebackers than you were 2 years ago, but you still have a 48-man roster, and you still got to fill your needs in on offense and defense. So you still got to find a way. If you're going to be lighter because your offensive defense are lighter, then you got to find ways around that with the kicks, with how you twist guys and how you place them. So you just got to maneuver. So it's not always like, oh, we're going to have to do it this way and this way we're going to do it because on kickoff return now is how you have to do it. No, you have to base it off your team's personnel.
Well, that's actually the challenge of that, because it's kind of going against the trend defensively where teams generally have sub-packages on the field for the vast majority of time with lighter bodies. If we mentioned the outside linebacker types.
Yeah, find a way. You have to adjust, man. You adjust or you die, right? So it's like, hey, if we got a lighter team, find ways to be better because of it, on kickoff, and find ways to do things differently than other teams are doing. That's what you got to do.
When coaching staff is completely different from last season, but how excited were you to get the opportunity to stay for another year, and what's it been like working with Vrabel so far?
Been unbelievable. Grateful to have a job in this profession. It's every year is a new year. Every year your job's on the line, and that's the job that we have, and I fully understand that. To be able to stay for another year, I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and thanks for Coach Vrabel and the organization for keeping me on. And I just going to take ownership of that and do the best I can to be the best special teams for this team and the best coach for this team on special teams and do everything I can to help us win games.
And then I wanted to ask about
And now, great moments in history.
You know, he was also a stand-up comedian.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he started to get too big, right?
Is that what he said?
Started to get too much of a following.
Matt.
People were.
Matt, you know why I left the Herald? I was too successful.
Right.
I had to come to the Patriots. He was too big.
He didn't want to travel, you know.
He didn't want to travel.
Didn't want to travel on the road for the show. Started getting too big, too funny, you know, really.
I don't think he's ever said that to us. That I was
wouldn't
Well, I
dare.
heard that-
He wouldn't, he wouldn't dare.
I heard that he said he was starting to get too big, and
He,
that's why he
he
stopped.
told us
Oh my
that he
God.
was good at it and that his style was like Jerry Seinfeld. Remember he compared himself to Seinfeld,
Observational humor.
right? So he never said that he was overly successful
No.
and that's why he got out of the business. Never said that to us.
He said they kept asking me back. I'm like, it was open mic night.
That's another great moment from
Back here on Patriots Unfiltered, 855-PASS-500 is the hotline. Podcast at Patriots.com is the email address.
He was too big.
He was too big. Evan's back.
Hi.
Just spent some time with Harvey Lange and Marcus Jones.
It's funny because now he's Harvey Lange. Like, I can't get it out of my head. So
Ruined
that's
it.
tough. Harold Landry.
Harold Landry.
was here, yes. First time we've talked to him since he, in a press conference setting. We had him on the website, but first time that we've talked to him in a press conference since signing with the Patriots. And he basically said as soon as the writing was all on the wall in Tennessee, he had Vrabel on the other line, waiting for him. So it sounded like that was pretty much a done deal quickly within the parameters, I'm sure, of NFL rules.
Well, he could have done it the next day. He got released.
Yeah.
He was
But
immediately
I meant
available.
like when he was still under contract for the Titans. I don't know if maybe they had talked about it with trade possibilities and stuff. But yeah, it sounds like that was both sides were eager to get that done as soon as he became available.
How about Marcus Jones? Did you get to hear from him?
Yeah, Marcus
Did he mention
Jones.
Germany?
He did.
Yeah.
Big fan of Dusseldorf. Big fan of all the Patriots fans that were there. He said he couldn't believe how many Patriots fans were there for the festivities. And I also thought it was interesting. You got a couple Travis Hunter questions as somebody that's played on both sides of the ball in the NFL, and he said he wouldn't say you can't do it. He would never say anybody can't, but he admitted that playing both ways in the NFL at full time is lofty. He said it's a long season, and I think he was talking about injuries and bumps
Sure.
and bruises and all that kind of
It's
stuff
everything.
catching up.
Yeah.
So he kind of made it sound like, I'm not going to say never, but unlikely that he.
What's his injury status now? How's he physically?
He wasn't asked about that, which surprised me. But it does seem like
Doesn't surprise Paul.
So he's been in. He told us that he's been in the building since in and out since February. I'm assuming to get rechecked, medically. But he's participating at least in the workouts.
Is that shoulder?
He sometimes, me,
shoulder?
CTE. He did finish the season on
correct. Yeah.
IR, correct?
Yeah, he missed the last game of the season.
No one asked him about that.
No.
Got it.
There you go. But you did both of them speak at length? Was it long?
Or were they late?
It was.
Or were they late?
Yeah, they were late, and,
Okay.
and then like a little staggered in terms of the time.
Okay.
But yeah, no.
Was there grousing because of the staggered?
There we go.
Good, Fred.
You like that?
I did.
That
Huh?
yes.
Yes,
yes.
it was?
For
Yeah.
me. I mean, I
Was
was
there
like,
a
let's get this
big
moving.
contingent?
Not a big contingent, but
People stayed up late for the game last night, so they
each outlet had a representative, I would say.
Yeah.
Not everybody. Mass Live didn't send their entire, starting five to this, but they had somebody there. You know. So.
Okay.
Hip injury
Yeah.
was what Marcus Jones was dealing with.
Yeah, when guys don't finish the previous season, I would think the next time
How
you
you
talk
doing?
to them,
Yeah.
that would be
How's your
something
hip?
that should work its way in.
I
you
was
doing?
expecting that
Opposed to
question.
Germany.
He was, you know how that goes. But yeah, he, No, I think with Marcus Jones, he's still trying to get a sense for Vrabel and the coaching staff. And he was asked a few questions about that, and he's like, "It's day 2." You know, I really couldn't tell you. You know, ask me again in a couple months. But
or that question,
right.
Yeah.
For exactly the reason that.
Right.
Yeah.
You can only say the word football 3 times a day, and that's it.
But you can say foot.
You can look at a football.
You can say ball. You just can't say football.
There is music, though, apparently, was like one thing that stood out to...
Music during the press conference?
No. Vrabel, I guess, plays music
I'm told that's very high on Mike Vrabel's list.
Throughout the hallways.
Music, always.
Of football.
Ambiance.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can just start singing.
He's getting serious about his music, too, right? Like, we're all... It's
Not too. He's getting serious about his music.
So is it music or music? Like, is it contemporary songs? Who's picking it?
Yeah.
Is there a house DJ? What's going on?
This is an investigative reporter type question. All I know is that there's music, and it does sound like Vrabel has the aux cord. I don't think that's a thing anymore. Connects to the Bluetooth. You know,
I just have the aux cord in my car.
Okay. You know, I think I aged myself with the aux cord. But yeah, it does sound like maybe, you know, it's early, so maybe Vrabel made the playlist for now. But it does sound like, you know, Harold Landry was a little like, I think we could do better with the music. He was like, it was fine, you know, whatever floats his boat, I think was his answer. So.
Vrabel's playing a little country.
80s, 90s rock, I would guess, is the Vrabel wheelhouse.
He's playing like Jethro Tull.
Oh.
People are like, what?
Get the flute out. Let's go.
Aqualung.
Yeah. All right. Anything else to report? What did you think about Travis Hunter yesterday talking about being able to play every play, both sides of the ball, or wanting to?
I'm sure he wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
You like that?
You like that.
You like that?
I don't think it really sways me one way or another. I love the play. Like, I take the player all day. Yeah. But I do take Marcus Jones at face. I mean, if anybody would know what it's like to have to prepare to play multiple, you know, positions on both sides of the ball, it would be Marcus Jones. And it's probably the closest thing we have, honestly, to what Travis Hunter's been able to pull off. I mean, Marcus Jones played even more receiver in college. You know, he played 10 to 15 snaps a game at times at Houston at wide receiver. So him saying that it's probably not possible, I think, speaks volumes. But
are there other common, well-known examples of wide receivers playing cornerback other than Troy Brown and Julian Edelman doing it here? I'm so focused on here, of course.
Oh, college, Champ Bailey did.
Yeah, Champ Bailey.
Deion Sanders. Champ Bailey would be an example.
Yeah, Champ Bailey did it in college almost as much as Travis Hunter.
Really? I didn't know.
Yeah, he did, and, you know, going way back, like Mel Gray. No, not Mel Gray, sorry. Roy Green. Different St. Louis Cardinal.
Okay.
He played some wide receiver. He actually transitioned full-time to wide receiver eventually. But he played a little of both. But, yeah, Champ Bailey's a good example at Georgia.
Yeah.
But once he got to the
then
pros...
Deion played a lot of receiver for Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah, Champ Bailey's the guy that Travis Hunter gets a lot of Champ Bailey comps because they played both ways in college. So
it's funny because they make fun of people. Like, if he could catch, he would have played receiver. But Travis Hunter seems like he's got elite ball skills, but he's still gravitated more towards cornerback, right?
I think
that's
so.
been more his position, right, over the course of his career?
I would say so.
The people that don't think that he could do both, I think there's more people that think he's a better corner than wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I don't, you know, that doesn't mean they're right.
Kieran in Ireland says, Fred referring to Harold Landry as Harvey Lange was my favorite moment of the offseason so far.
Just to reiterate, it was Harvey Lang.
Right. It wasn't even Lange.
It wasn't even Lange.
I'm just worried I'm going to it's going to stick in my head now that Harold Landry is.
Oh, I know. No, I got to block it out.
We thought that he may have been thinking of Harvey Lange, but he quickly corrected us on that. No. That's not who he was thinking of. He was thinking of Harvey Lang, who was actual Harold Landry.
Not K.D. Lang.
Not to be confused with K.D. Okay. Small K called small D.
Right.
Okay. Let's see.
Right?
Mike writes in, and he says, lifelong Patriots fan, been watching since Mike didn't have white hair and Paul had hair.
Oh.
I need some Paul therapy.
You've been around for a long time then, my friend.
I need some Paul therapy.
I'll try.
Obviously, since the start of the season, we've wanted Hunters, and I'm so stoked that these stooge franchises might convince themselves they need quarterbacks and Hunter slides to us. But as the draft gets close and I've watched more Campbell film and interviews, part of me wants Hunter to be taken so the Patriots will draft Campbell. Super mixed feelings here. Am I alone? Please help. He asked you for therapy.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't give you therapy. I've been pretty consistent on Will Campbell. To me, it's all about his potential to play the position.
Right, but what do you think?
I don't know enough to really have an opinion.
You don't have an opinion?
No, I can't tell you from watching a guy play in college. It's not my profession to say that guy's not going to be able to play tackle at the NFL level. He's playing tackle at a high level in the SEC. To me, why can't he play? But experts seem to be split on that. Some think he can. Some think that the arm length is going to be an issue. I don't know. But I think that Will Campbell is a really good prospect. So yeah. I don't feel qualified to say, like, he can't play tackle in the NFL.
I think for me, it's, like I said earlier, if it's not Carter or Hunter at 4th overall, I'm going to have some questions at the 4th overall pick. I really love Will Campbell. I love, what the caller said about his attitude, his demeanor, brings a little bit of swag to the position, but is it stupid that, like, I would feel so much better to take him at 6th than I would at 4th? Like, it would make me feel a little bit better to take him a little bit lower to offset some of the uncertainty.
If we can get Campbell in an extra pick, I'm sign me up.
I just think there's some uncertainty, no matter who it is. If it's not Carter or Hunter at 4, there will be some debate about whether this pick will work or not. Whether you're taking somebody that you're projecting or what.
Let me throw this out here.
Got a thought.
If the Patriots end up picking at 4, would it be safe to assume that they did not have a trade down partner? That, in other words, if they can trade down, they're going to trade down.
But what if they love the guy?
Or what if?
Well, it's not Hunter or Carter.
What if the package is
no, that's why. Okay, that's why I'm asking. Is it safe to assume? You can say no. It's not safe to assume.
No, I think you might be right, but I don't think it's an assumption that I'd be willing to make because they might really like whoever they take it for.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they're going to like who they took. You know what I mean.
I'm talking about really liking them, not telling us that they like them.
We didn't want to trade.
Right.
Right.
I don't know about we didn't want to trade, but I don't know if the package is going to be there.
Well, that's what I mean. So, like,
I don't think you're going to have any options.
If the Patriots get at 4 and there's no Carter, there's no Hunter, would the Patriots prefer to trade down? That's the question.
I would.
If that's the question, I would say probably yes.
And you possibly miss out on a guy like Campbell then.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it depends, like, on what is coming back. Like, it depends on the offer. I'm not trading down just to trade down.
No.
Sure.
But if it's a good enough offer.
But whatever you think is a good enough offer, would they rather do that or take somebody at 4?
I would assume probably.
So there's no guy.
That's just my,
me too.
This isn't the Patriots. So in other words, there's no guy other than Carter or Hunter that the Patriots say, we're not trading. We like this guy at 4. We are not trading. There's no one that they would be willing to say that about.
That'd make me feel good if they did.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to think that they felt that way about.
Like if they have that kind of conviction about Will Campbell.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that would ease my fears a little bit.
Yeah. I think the only way that I could see that is if they truly feel that Campbell's the only true left tackle in that range. Like if they're more convinced of him playing tackle than Membu flipping sides, right? Like if they don't feel like Membu is truly a left tackle and is more of a right tackle, then I guess maybe you would feel compelled to not lose out on Campbell. But I'm sure that if they had a good offer and something I've been just thinking about, would a team trade up for Shedeur? Like it sounds to me like he's at least in the conversation for the Browns at 2 and the Giants at 3. I don't know if he's going to win out and they're going to take him, but
that's our only hope. But
they're at least discussing him as an option there, which tells me that it's not completely crazy to think that he's a top 10 pick in the draft. So is New Orleans at 9? Do they say, well, we're going to jump Vegas, we're going to make sure nobody behind us comes up and gets him, and we're going to go from 9 to 4 and draft Shedeur?
But you can probably go from 9 to 5 and get Shedeur, right?
Yeah, but if somebody calls the Patriots at 4 and offers them something, somebody that's in your way, then maybe you make the trade anyway. And then it's a quarterback trade.
Yeah.
So then you're getting a little bit more if you're the Patriots. Like, that's the problem, is if you're thinking about trade down and they're only trading up to draft Will Campbell or draft Ashton Genty or something, you're not going to get what you would get if it was a quarterback.
Right.
So if 4 turns into a quarterback pick and 4 is where Shador is going to go, then now all of a sudden there might be a market for 4.
That seems the only way that path happens, is that the other two guys, Carter and Hunter, go up top. It pushes Shador down.
Yeah.
And does somebody want him? That to me is really the big question. I don't hear a lot of people asking.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think?
What's
Percentages, maybe?
I mean, I just, the thing for me is I couldn't have predicted last year that Bo Nix was going to go as high as he was. The league values quarterbacks so much, and that to me is the great unknown, that we can hear all these questions about Shador and say, yeah, he's a first-round pick, but is he a top 10 pick? But I still think a team will probably reach him, and I do think a team will likely be interested to trade up for him, even if, to me, on paper, it makes the most sense to just sit back and wait, and if you don't get him, you don't get him.
Yeah,
but
I think that's what's going to end up happening. That's if you're asking me now
sit back and
there's
wait.
Still 3 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something like
2
that.
2 weeks.
2. Yeah, I think if New Orleans has talked themselves into him, I think they just sit tight at 9 and pick him at 9.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's the most
definitely a
likely
case for that.
scenario.
There's definitely a case for that. I think you just look at some of those teams lurking. Pittsburgh, for example. They're
Pittsburgh would be Denver. Didn't Denver move up for Bo? Am I
forget.
misremembering that?
I was
I
in
don't
Drake
think so.
Maple.
If it was, it was maybe a couple picks. But
so Pittsburgh could do it.
A team like Pittsburgh looks at it and says, we want to come up to, and we're going to jump New Orleans.
Yeah.
And if you're New Orleans, do you say,
well,
we're going to get to the front of the line? I mean, that's the way the pick has value.
That's what the Patriots need to hope for.
Right. Do we know, is Shador going to Green Bay? Is he going to be
I don't know.
at the draft?
I don't know, but Jalen Milroe
will be there.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that they're
so
trying to
Michael
get
Lundy.
more guys to go to the draft and not do things on their own, but Dion seems like like we're going to sell marketing deals to Buffalo Wild Wings or something, and we're going to make millions off of his draft party.
I was just thinking, though, to Fred's point, talking about this, is that if they aren't able to trade down, that they're going to have to do a little bit of a sell job, I think, on that 4th pick of saying, this is the guy we wanted. They can't go in and kind of insinuate, like, well, we kind of want to get out of the spot. We got stuck. Like, they have to probably come out
you sell, like,
and sell it. Like, this
all
was our
they would
guy.
need to
We were
do-
happy he was there.
I have Exhibit A to my left. Just Fred can run this whole thing. You have an incredible knack of making every pick exactly what you wanted, and I think that's all you'd have to do.
Okay.
No, in all seriousness, I think that's an easy thing to do. You don't have to go out and say, well,
I know.
we really wanted to move down there, but
Never gonna hear
we had to make a pick, so
here he is.
Welcome, Will Campbell. Like, they're not going to do that. No team does that.
But I feel like with Will Campbell, it's the position need is so glaring that's an easy sell, right? We needed a left tackle. We took the best left tackle. If they take Jalen Walker, then people, I think, are going to be like, another linebacker, like, what are we doing, right? But if you take a guy like Campbell, then you can sit there and say, well,
he played left tackle,
plug and play, right?
Since he was born, practically.
Yeah. Tim in California writes in, longtime listener, haven't missed a show in 2 years. Agree with Paul. Bring back the old red uniforms and get rid of the Buffalo Blueberry uniforms. I disagree with Deuce. Will Campbell at 4 is our pick. He played in the SEC for several years at left tackle. That should mean something. He's better than any other tackle and has that Logan Mankins aggressive and violent attitude. I like Jaden Higgins in the 2nd round, as Stephen Smith Sr. praised everything about him while pointing out that Ted McMillan does not play physical enough for his size and needs more coaching. Lastly, at the 3rd pick, grab the center from Georgia, Jared Wilson.
The 3rd pick? 3rd round?
3rd round.
3rd pick.
Jared Wilson's he's a good player, but it's a little early for a center. Yeah.
I will not be disappointed at all if Will Campbell is the selection. I would feel a little bit better if you mitigated the risk by picking up maybe an extra pick to trade down a couple spots and still take him. But if they have to stick and pick and take Will Campbell, I totally agree with what he's saying. He's a left tackle.
Just don't say we had a stick and pick.
Yeah, just don't say we had. Just don't sell it to me.
Elliot Wolf, whoever's.
We weren't going anywhere.
Whoever we're hearing from.
When Campbell fell to us, we
which
knew.
is different terminology when you're selling it to us.
And plus, my son's name's Campbell, so I get a Campbell jersey for him.
go.
So that's
He's
extra.
no Tyson Campbell. That was the ultimate draft pick for you.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to the hotline. We'll go to Tim in Seattle. Hey, Tim.
Timmy.
Yeah, how's it going?
Hey, Tim.
What's the matter, Tim?
Come on,
sound
Tim.
down.
He does sound
Up in
down.
the Northwest.
Well, he's in Seattle. It's probably
raining.
It's raining here too. Don't complain.
It is raining, but I was just back home in Boston. It was raining all weekend.
Right. Oh, so that's what you're pissed off.
Yeah.
That I understand. You try to get away from the rain, and you get more rain.
Yeah.
Blame it on the rain.
Anyways, so my feeling about I love Abdul Carter as a player, but I can't get over this feeling that if we pick him, it's just going to feel like a luxury pick, and we're not really helping Drake May. And
You will when you only have to score 15 points to win the game.
I know. That's my feeling. Is like, are we going back to this thing of like, well, we just got to score a couple of touchdowns, and we're praying to God that the offense can handle it. But I really think we need to address offense in this draft. And my feeling is, I'm going to be happy with Will Campbell or Tyler Warren. Any of those guys, or trade down with Matthew Golden. But I think we definitely need to pick up a tackle and a wide receiver in the first couple rounds, and it's kind of
those
I
are
think
needs.
that's the only way I'm going to be happy coming out of this draft.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
Those are the major needs, no doubt.
Yeah. Boy,
he's down.
He's listen to him now. Imagine if they don't pick offense.
I
how
was,
we'll
I
sound.
was, I was actually
Holy
fast
mackerel.
forwarding to the Thursday night, April 24th.
Yeah.
And, we've picked, and it's not the guy that anybody wants.
Yeah.
And we're going to get a lot of those kinds of calls.
If it's
I
Abdul
think
Carter,
Ashton
you
Genty,
can't-
people could talk themselves into because it's an offensive player. But
Yeah.
if it's a defensive, if it's Mason Graham,
Yeah. I get what he's saying. I also just, though, the more the team building you go through, it's like you can't orchestrate what you're going to be able to get. And sometimes you have an
Yeah.
opportunity, and are you going to be maybe a little bit heavy on one side of the ball or one position? Maybe. But if you have a chance to draft a player who's clearly head and shoulders above the rest, you have to do it. And I mean,
if Abdul Carter is the guy for
like,
that reason,
yeah.
I think you'd have to take him.
And
I don't
last
think it's a
year,
luxury.
I know I'm not using this as as an excuse or anything, but last year, it didn't really line up that they got a tackle. Like, they should have found a way to get one, but it wasn't easy, and they didn't figure out a way to do it. Sometimes that happens, and that was an extreme case last year that really was unacceptable how it ultimately worked out. But you have to take what's available to you, and that's why you were lucky last year when you needed a quarterback. You got the quarterback. You don't have the same luck though, probably this year. That's the problem.
Let's go back to the phones. Eldred's in North Carolina. What's up, Eldred? Eldred.
Big E.
Eldred, what's up? Eldred. Oh, well.
Must have gotten pulled over.
Yeah, maybe he's talking to the officer. Dave's in Atlanta. Hey, Dave.
Hey, am I on?
Yes.
Hey.
Hey, guys, how you doing? I listen to every show. I don't often get a chance to call in because I'm always on the road, but I had a chance today, and I wanted to call in. So thanks for taking my call. Anyways, long-time Patriots fan with season ticket holder back in the 70s. I have three thoughts, if you could bear with me, because I never get a chance to call. I'll try to be brief. I have thoughts on the free agency class, thoughts on the draft, and on one player in the current roster. The reason I called in today is because Evan talked to him today, and that's Marcus Jones. So my thoughts on, I'll just go right to Marcus Jones. I believe Marcus Jones is not a good fit for the current scheme as they're probably setting it up. And I think he's going to be a cut candidate coming out of camp. And I really think that they should explore, because I agree with Evan. I think that they're going to end up using Diggs in the slot. I think McDaniels is going to try to maximize his route running ability over the middle. And so I think Pop Douglas is going to have a lot of reduced playing time this year if Diggs is healthy. And I would like to see them try to take Marcus Jones and move him permanently to offense and make him a punt returner and make him a slot receiver, have him play behind Diggs, get some playing time on there. Because I think if they don't do that, I think Marcus Jones is not going to be on the roster this year. Thoughts on the free agency class is I think they had a good class. I think they did a good job of plugging some holes, but I think we have to pump the brakes a bit on being overly excited about how much they've transformed the team. I like the Carlton Davis signing. I think that these two linebackers they picked up are good signings. They're good team fits, but let's be honest. I mean, you're not going to win a Super Bowl with Jack Gibbons as an undrafted free agent, manning the middle of the defense, unless you got a bunch of all-pros around him. So you got Jack Gibbons, you got the other linebacker, Spillane, he's a good player. But I personally think that the free agency class set them up for what Vrabel wants to do in the draft, which is really focused on the front seven and on the offensive line. I think there's zero chance that they're going to pick Ashton Dempsey or Tyler Warren. I don't think these guys are on their radar unless they trade down. I think that what they're going to do is they're going to take Will Campbell, and if Will Campbell isn't available, it's only because they trade down and they lose the opportunity to get him. And then in that case, maybe they take Jalen Walker or somebody like that. But I think Campbell, like we talked about Hunter and Carter, those are both transcendent talents. I don't know how Vrabel will be able to resist taking Carter if he's available. I mean, just to anchor that pass rush, I think that would be undeniably irresistible. However, the reality is that we can't lose the focus on the game plan of what they're trying to do. You have a quarterback on a rookie contract, and he's going to potentially be a superstar if we don't protect his blind side. We've been kicking tackles down the road since the last Super Bowl. We haven't addressed it in years. And I think it's criminal that we're actually talking about, like I love Evan. I love your takes, Evan, on the receivers and everything. As great as Travis Hunter could be, you have to build the house before you furnish it. I'm sorry. You've got to get the trenches set. I don't care how great Travis Hunter is going to be. You've got to get a tackle at the top of this draft. I'm serious. Either a tackle or maybe Carter. I could be talking to Carter. But I would take Will Campbell, even if Carter and Travis Hunter are on the board at 4.
That's
how big of a need this is. I just really think they need to solidify that position as priority number 1. And if they get a chance to do it at 4, I think they got to do it. That's all I got.
All right, thanks, Dave. So I mean, I get what he's saying. I understand, but here's my thing: if they don't address tackle in the first round with Will Campbell, that doesn't mean I don't believe. That doesn't mean that they don't believe they still have to address tackle. I think that they'll do other things to address that spot this offseason. Whether it's bringing in Tyron Smith or drafting,
but it might not even be this year. I
don't think
would just
they're going to do this year what they did last year.
I would just push back on the kicking the can down the road. If they don't think that Will Campbell is a left tackle of the future, I don't think not taking him represents kicking the can down the road. It's evaluating the talent that's available.
But even if they do think that Will Campbell's going to be a good tackle in this league, if you've got Travis Hunter or Carter, you got to take them. I'm sorry.
But that's a different argument.
But he said he would even take them.
No, I know. That's how he feels about it. And obviously, we feel differently about Carter and Hunter. I think all 4 of us would take either Carter or Hunter if they're available.
Right.
But I don't think that it's like this huge misstep if they don't think that Will Campbell's as good as you think he is.
Yeah.
I don't know how they feel about Will Campbell. Maybe they don't think of him as a left tackle. And by the way, Kansas City's won a fair amount of Super Bowls without kicking the can down the road with their offensive line.
Yeah,
Philadelphia has a great offensive line they've invested heavily in, and they just won the Super Bowl. That's one way to do it. But I don't believe in the whole you have to build the foundation before the There's a million different ways to build a great football team, and Kansas City and Philadelphia went about it in pretty much entirely different ways.
Yeah. I just think it comes back to, in my opinion, bad teams stay bad by passing on talent for need, right? Yeah. When you, especially at that point in the draft, there's no way that Travis Hunter is not ahead of Will Campbell on your board. There's no way that you have a higher grade on Will Campbell. So you're taking a lesser talent at that spot as a team that won 4 football games last year. Like that's not good business. That's not good managing of your assets. So if you take Travis Hunter at the top of the draft, like now we can't get Ariante Ursary or Josh Connerly or Josh Simmons or there's no other options. Like
that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying not taking Will Campbell doesn't to me represent kicking the can down the road. Right. And let's just say another thing that Dave said, and I love Dave's call by the way, but just sort of giving the other side of this. So Dave mentioned that they have a potential superstar quarterback that they have to protect. Well, if he's right, if Dave is right and Drake May is a superstar in the making, then I'm not sure he needs the number 4 overall pick to be a left tackle because he's a superstar.
Right.
He doesn't need that level. He can be he
needs competent play. but he doesn't need a superstar.
Correct.
And we
you
talked
can
about
take
that before.
what Evan says
Right.
and a guy in the second round who can do, a serviceable job.
Right.
Nate Solder can play,
Right.
instead of someone taking the 4th overall pick.
Yep.
Right.
It doesn't have to be. If the better the quarterback is, the more room you have for error on the margins.
Yeah.
Maybe if you get him a really good wide receiver, like if Travis Hunter was available, that helps make up for that a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if they come out of this draft and they haven't made a sizable investment in tackle, then I think all of us will be critical of that. But they have other picks.
But I would also
So-
say, don't you think the offensive? Let's say that we're all wrong and they're not able to get anybody, and Vidarian Lowe starts at left tackle. Don't you still think the offensive line's better today than it was last year?
Yeah.
It's not enough.
It's not good enough.
Not enough better, but Morgan Moses at right tackle, to me, makes you better.
Yeah.
A little bit better.
Yeah.
They had no tackles on either side last year. They went with that controversial no tackle approach.
So that's fair. I just think right now they have no left side.
Yeah, I don't expect that. I agree with Fred. I expect them to do something. We may not love it, but I think they'll do something to address left tackle.
Like if they don't take a tackle in the first round at 4, I just mentioned a couple of names that are in range at 38. Maybe you have to trade up to secure one of those guys back into the first round, which I think is something that they tried to do last year and are interested in doing. I think they've shown that they would do something like that. You could do that and you could double dip, right? Like you could take a developmental tackle in the 3rd or 4th round on top of that and really hedge your bets, at that position. So just because you don't take the tackle at 4 doesn't mean you're not taking a tackle.
Right.
So there was one thing that he said, again, great call because he touched on a ton of different things. I'm curious to the thoughts of you guys about his feeling on Marcus Jones.
Yeah, well, we had the defensive coaches last week. It was funny. We were getting down to the end with the cornerbacks coach, who I'm blanking on his name at the moment. But one more question, and I asked him about that. How do you see the slot position in the NFL today? And he really talked about it being a matchup position, which is how I see it. So I don't really. I understand what Dave's getting at, but
I'm not sure I do. So
well,
that's why I
think
was
he's
asking
saying.
you guys'
I think he's looking at a smaller player that he doesn't see.
Well, I
as
was a little confused at first because when he
fit.
talked about Marcus Jones in the slot, I thought he was talking about offense.
Well, he eventually was, but
I know, but like
he thinks that his style is not conducive to the way they want to play now. And I would just ask.
I would.
No offense, Mike, but I'm going to ask the ball
You're saying
knower.
I'm not a ball knower?
Specifically, and this is a dead legit question. I'm not trying to be snarky Paul here. What about Marcus Jones's style would not be conducive to what I think is sort of man coverage? That's what he does.
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I don't know.
Ball knower don't know.
We've obviously talked about.
Nuggets fired their coach.
We've talked about having a little bit more size in there, a little bit more durability certainly than Marcus Jones sometimes shows because of his lack of size. But in terms of the skill set, I have no idea why Marcus Jones
wouldn't
be a fit
I'm not
in the
asking
defense.
you how good you think Marcus Jones is, because you guys all know that I have my concerns about Marcus Jones's coverage ability.
Yeah.
I'm probably a little bit down on him comparatively to most people, but his style, he's physical, spunk. He's a willing tackler.
Sticky.
Yeah.
Sticky. He's a good athlete.
Fast.
Mirrors. I just wondering about his skill set. Why? Now, if you don't think he's good enough, that's a different argument.
Right.
But it seemed to me that Dave was suggesting that his style wasn't conducive to the way Vrabel's going to want to play defense.
I mean, they said multiple times that they want to play cat coverage. And if they're going to play that on the outside, then that means the slot's going to have to be in man-to-man too. Marcus Jones is a really good man-to-man slot corner now.
We're not playing dog coverage.
He has limitations.
Well, you know what cat coverage is, right?
No.
You got that cat. I got this cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cat
Now
coverage.
I remember.
That's not ball knower talk.
Yeah.
That's kind of
hard to
like
cover cats,
snarky
though.
talk.
But I would also just say, Marcus Jones is not playing offense full-time. No. He's not doing it. As long as he has a job in the NFL, playing the role that he wants to play, he's at the point now, and I don't blame him for it, where he's starting to kind of get annoyed about the question about playing offense, because it's he fancies himself as a defensive back. He does not think he's a receiver.
Well, and the other part that I would
it.
say in his defense, too, is part of that is the size. Travis Hunter's 6'1", 180, 185, 190.
Yeah.
That's significantly bigger than, 5'8"?
Yeah,
Marcus Jones,
like 5'8", 170.
I just think too he's a really good punt returner, and for an offense that really struggled last year, I hope it's not the same. But you have a legit piece that can help you gain some field position. We talked about letting him do kickoffs too.
I'd be very surprised. You know me,
he can make things happen with the ball in his hands.
I'd love to tell you I wouldn't be surprised if you told me pretty much anyone was going to get cut. I think that would represent a real surprise cut.
Yeah.
We've asked Jeremy Springer about him returning kickoffs, and they've favored bigger kickoff returners because of how it's very physical. You're really getting whacked when you get hit. Yeah. And so they're worried about the smaller guys having durability. So they've favored the bigger returners. Now, if it was the game, right? Like if it's fourth quarter,
we talked about it the other day.
Right.
Marcus Jones maybe getting some opportunities. We talked about that before.
Yeah,
you came back.
10 seconds to go, tie game, fourth quarter, and they're kicking it back to you, and you have one return. Like maybe you put him back there. Like teams would do with their best player, but. Right. I don't think he's going to be like a regular kick returner.
Josh writes in, and this is an email, a good example of careful what you wish for. Okay? I've noticed that Christian from LA has been awfully quiet since the hate mail started pouring in. Christian, don't let our hate stop you from calling in. We might not like you. I know I don't. But we don't. But we New Englanders are a bitter bunch that need a target to fuel our rage. You are the Don Zimmer to our Pedro Martinez, the Sergio Brown to our Rob Gronkowski, the Connecticut to our Massachusetts. We need you more than you know. Our relationship may be toxic, but deep down we love you. Wow. So there you go. See, now people miss him.
Color on color love.
People miss him.
Nice.
Ish. He said people may hate you. I do. He said.
But he wants more Christian from L.A.
Yeah.
Patty's in Agawam.
What's going on in Denver?
What's up, Patty?
Did you see it?
They cleaned house.
Yeah.
What's up, gentlemen?
Who?
Hey.
General manager, too.
Oh, wow.
So does that mean Travis in West Virginia really likes me and likes when I call in?
Well, no, he doesn't like you, but he likes when you call in. Yeah.
No, that's just us.
All right, I got you, Paulie.
Yeah.
So, more draft talk I want to throw out there. I was listening to Giardi's podcast yesterday, and he wasn't the first person to bring it up. He had a mock draft, and he had the Patriots taking Jalen Walker at number 4, and then had them trading back into Minnesota's pick at number 24. And I think, he's not the first person to say that, like I said. And I think that's kind of a running narrative. Like, if we don't get the tackle that we want at 4, just trade the Minnesota's pick. Well, that's kind of a dangerous game, in my opinion, because we saw it, Evan, you brought it up, we saw it last year. Like, I was hearing things that they were going to trade up to Buffalo's pick, and then Carolina came in with a better offer. So who's to say that can't happen again? I would be more comfortable if they're not fans of Will Campbell, like if they like even Banks or Ursery or Connerly, just like trade down to the teams, accumulate more assets, and take the guy that you want. That's all I got, guys.
All right, thanks, Patty.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that there's some buzz about Jalen Walker. I mean, Mike and I said it in February that this guy
Those are the guys I've been talking myself into. It started with you guys, absolutely.
He is a professional football player. Like, he is a captain. He is a leader. He is going to win over every single coach in a 30 visit and a private workout and a combine meeting. He's a little bit of a tweener. Like, I think that's like the one concern is like, is he a rush linebacker? Is he an off-ball linebacker?
Yeah.
He's kind of caught in between. But if you give him to a creative coaching staff that you trust on that side of the football, he's going to be a really, really good football player for a while.
I'm just intrigued by Georgia defensive players because
that's all it takes.
There's somewhere around, I don't know, 10 to a dozen in recent, call it 5 years. And, I mean, how many of them haven't really worked out? Most of them have been at least pretty good players, if not great.
Yeah, the comp that he gets a lot is Nolan Smith, like as a pure edge guy.
Terrific player.
I don't know if he's quite as like big and like strong as Nolan Smith is on the edge to play full time.
What was Nolan Smith coming out though?
Yeah, probably around 240.
You know what happens, Mike, at the NFL level?
Skinless chicken?
Yeah.
They
sure, you got in the program.
I think
learn nutrition.
I think he's Hightower, right? Like he's off the ball on early downs, and then on third down you put him on the edge or over the the guard or whatever, and let him use his quickness and speed to rush the passer.
Put him next to Spillane every down.
His instincts are incredible.
Yeah, those two guys move him around, edge, coverage. You could do everything with him. I mean, I get what everybody's saying, though, with, like, you spent so much time on defense, you signed 2 guys, but that's still a player. Pencil him right in. Starter, day one.
He's he's a playmaker. Like, he's a little bit different, I would say, than like a Spillane. Like, Spillane's a nice player. Like, I think Jalen Walker has a chance to be a true, like, difference maker.
Let Spillane do the dirty work, and let Walker float around, make plays.
Mark's in Philly. What's up, Mark?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good. Hey. You ever been to the Victor Cafe?
Oh, jeez.
Nah, not yet.
Oh, you got to go.
Well, my question is kind of about a hypothetical in the draft. So I want to see what you guys think about this. Say Travis Hunter goes, Abdul Carter goes. Patriots are sitting there at 4. I think they trade with the Saints. They drop back to 9 and they pick up Chris Olave. And with the 9th pick, I think you go Tyler Warren, mainly because Hunter Henry is in his last year of his contract. With that being said, you solidify another young wide receiver that Diggs can teach up, and you solidify your tight end position for the next 10 years with Tyler Warren. I think in the second round, that's when you take your tackle. And like you guys said a little bit ago about double dipping later in the round, that's what I would say would be the best case scenario for the Pats. That's all I got.
Oh, okay. Hang up.
Henry has 2 years left.
Yeah, I was going to say.
2 years left, but it's not. I understand where he's going.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Olave, I've heard that a lot. Get Olave, and I think he's a terrific player. I think that comes with tremendous risk to me. That's multiple concussions in a short period of time for a young receiver who, by the way, is coming to the precipice of you need to pay him if you want him. So, yeah, that's all well and good. Maybe Stephon Diggs, I don't know why that's his job and responsibility to teach him up. But how are you going to keep him? And if you're New Orleans, like, I don't know if I'm the Patriots. That's all I'm getting.
Chris Olave.
To go from 4 to 9 is Chris Olave?
No.
Is that enough?
No.
I need Chris Olave in a third at minimum.
So I'm intrigued by Olave because I think he's really talented. I really, really like the player. I'm a little worried about the concussions.
Oh, it's a fair concern. I mean, I don't think you can count on him being consistently available.
I wouldn't be surprised if they do not take an impact wide receiver in this draft. That's the position that everyone talks about as a need right now, but that's one that they don't fill. That it's not the right fit.
They got Diggs for the short term.
They got Diggs. They added Hollins.
They
drafted
and they think
2
that they
guys
can get by with that.
Like, so if you say you'd be surprised they don't pick an impact, that means second round, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not talking day 3 selection, but I think you got to hit the running back class. They need an edge. They need a young edge. It's a great edge class. If they don't get a good impact edge in this class, I'll be disappointed. But it's hard, like one of the callers said, to look at this wide receiver class and be like, that's the guy, that's the one. Like, you can pencil guys in that are complementary to what they have. And I know everyone dislikes the receivers from last year, but at some point you have to let your 10 wide receivers on the roster develop. You can't just keep adding guys and adding guys and adding guys. You got to bite the bullet at some point. This year might be it.
Hit.
Yeah,
see how they do.
I don't know about the last part of that. Like, if they can't play, like, I don't have to.
No, I know, but I just don't know if they're convinced yet they can't play.
I'm bringing in guys like Stephon Diggs, who I think are better than those guys.
Yeah,
that's what I want to do.
I would just I agree with you. For the most part, I just think maybe in the 3rd or 4th round you can throw another dart.
Yeah, I agree with Mike that it might not be.
Yeah,
that,
because I
don't that Higgins or
that's probably the better way to put it. That it's going to be a
guys.
dart and it's not going to be a slam dunk. We got a guy across from Diggs. It's going to be a guy who's going to enter the mix with Polk and Baker and Bourne and all these guys, and Booty. I mean, there's a ton of them, and they're going to see what Josh can do with these guys, and who are they really? I don't think they've given up on everybody yet. I mean, I said at the top of the show, I love seeing all those wide receivers popped up in these videos. They're all here right now. That's a good sign, but they have to prove it. And I just wonder if they're as out on their wide receivers as the general sentiment
being
is.
Out is like, let's say that we're in, okay? So let's go with Booty, Douglas, Polk, Baker. What do you think the highest level? Give me a comp for any of those 4.
What do you mean, like a comp?
Like, I think if we're in on them and they all stick around, they all stay. Like, I just think that the ceiling is not very high. Like, the ceiling is like the complimentary guys that they've had in the past, like the LaFells.
Yeah.
That's not good enough.
Well, I guess my response to that is just I don't see the way in the draft to really improve on that. Like, I don't see a guy.
It's just a different argument. Because I agree with you. I think that you guys, I mean, and I always defer to you two because you're doing far more in terms of situating the board and where guys might go. I think you guys are right. You're probably not going to get. You probably don't have the luxury of being able to take one of these wide receivers because you have some other things that you need. I think they got Diggs. I think you can't just like magically fill 17 holes at once.
Yeah.
Like some things are going to get left unfilled.
Yeah.
And if you don't get Will Campbell at 4 because you don't think he's a tackle, you're going to have to take a tackle.
Yeah.
With the next pick, I think.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do something.
And I think like McDaniels can probably do more with lesser receivers.
Yeah.
Like if you give him
agree.
a decent line and Drake May, obviously, like I think that you can probably still, Mac Jones' rookie year, Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne and Hunter Henry. It wasn't like they had, prime Randy Moss on that team and they had a decent offense. So I agree with Mike that it's either receiver early or receiver late. Like there doesn't really feel like there's like that day 2 gotta have him receiver in this class.
It'd be interesting to see how it unfolds, but it's I agree with you guys. I don't know if you can get everything at once.
I mean, the way I think about it is you deal with it this year. You hope Drake has a great year. You hope Diggs gets healthy and gets himself in position to really be back the year after for whatever that means at 32. But then really next year be in the position where we feel like we have the left tackle. We drafted a stud defensive end. Defense feels pretty set. Now's the time to pour a bunch of resources and go get the dog. Go get that number one guy
Let's go,
somehow.
Mike. You always say, like, I always find red flags when it doesn't So I'm going to go the opposite way. Let's say that this really, really works really, really well. That, to me, would represent Diggs is pretty healthy, and he's available to go at pretty close to 100% pretty early in the season. And he establishes himself as your best. Now that might make Booty and Polk and Douglas better players.
Yeah.
And that might make them being a LaFell or a Hogan or someone like that more valuable. Mac Hollins, is another one of those guys. And suddenly, to the point that Evan made, McDaniels has an ability to maybe scheme these. This is best case scenario now.
Yeah.
Right. Diggs is healthy. He's your lead dog. Everybody else gets better because of him.
Yeah.
And if you can protect Drake May just a little bit better,
right, and May's better,
maybe you have that natural progression and your offense becomes serviceable.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a couple of receivers like in the 3rd or 4th round range too that I think are worth throwing darts at. Both of us love Isaiah Bond. Now he has some maturity issues, kind of like Javon Baker, that some teams are a little bit worried about with that. But like the talent is undeniable. I mean, this guy was on track to be like the next Jalen Waddle at Alabama before he ran into some issues. So he's got an unbelievable talent. There's guys like that I think just can come in, and if it's a hit, then it's going to be a home run, and maybe that's worth it for them. And if it's not, then it's another one of the many misses. But it's kind of a boomer bust.
Matt
pick.
in Fort Worth writes in, I was enjoying last week's newsletter. And you can sign up for the newsletter at patriots.com/PU newsletter. You should do that. Specifically the section about who from history you would all like to meet. After reading Deuce's pick, Benjamin Church, I did a cursory Wikipedia search on him and found out he was a British spy during the Revolutionary War.
No, wrong. That's his.
So my question is, Deuce, of all the people dead or alive that you could have said, why would you want to meet a traitor from the Revolution?
No, you're wrong. That's his grandson. That's why I put his born on and dead by date. So he was generation before that. So you got to go back to Wikipedia and look up the right Benjamin Church.
So can you fill us in?
So why
don't you pretend that we all know?
Benjamin Church is really
sounds like a center.
He was second generation after the Pilgrims and was largely credited with originating like the Rangers of the Army, learning how to use Native American tactics, and really a huge influence on the Revolutionary War and how we fought against the British. Because originally when we got here, we thought we fought the same way. Line up, march to the field. Obviously the Native Americans were hit and run and all the tactics then that the Americans adopted. So in my research at King Philip's, so Benjamin Church was at all the major battles of King Philip's War, and then after I discovered him, I discovered that he's actually my first cousin 11 times removed as well.
Oh, look at this. Another thing we find out about Deuce.
I knew there was something. Didn't you know there was something underneath?
First cousin.
So he's basically Mel Gibson in The Patriot.
Mel Gibson in The Patriot, that was based on Benjamin Church, even though they happened about 100 years, 100 years apart. But yeah, Benjamin Church, original American soldier.
You really are a letdown to your family. You know?
Well, I definitely
Don't let him get away with that.
I'm getting to be an old man, so I'm being a history nerd now. I don't know if that's hitting you guys too, but as I become older, I read more books about history, and
I do crosswords and watch Jeopardy.
That's
my old age.
I mean, Twinkle Toes Dussault, right? You got
right.
Ben Church.
Who
Who else in your family tree that we should know about?
Well, it connects to one of the original pilgrims was an ancestor of mine, and he's an ancestor for a lot of people because he had the foresight not to bring his wife and his 3 daughters over. His name was Richard Warren, so he came over alone on the Mayflower, got settled up for a year, then brought his daughters and his wife over, and all the daughters lived, got married, each had a bunch of kids. So a lot of people are related to the Pilgrims are related to Richard Warren.
Wow. Deuce, you go way back.
I mean, Deuce has a 28-3 tee. So yeah.
Actually, can I tell one more quick story? Actually,
I guess.
So I've told the story about the 28-3 tee before. I told you guys that my grandfather had actually passed away on March 28th in 2001. It was also my grandparents in East Dennis. Their mailbox was 328. Then the 328 T-shirt happened. When we first moved here, we rented a house in Sharon next to a wonderful family. Joe Kurtzer was the man's name next door, and his wife, Phyllis. Wonderful family. Took us in, were great to us. I just found out Joe passed away. I went to his service. He passed away on March 28th as well. So
wow.
I now have both my grandfather, Joe Kurtzer, a very special person to me, passed away. I couldn't believe it. I walked into the wake, and I saw that he had passed away on 3/28 too, and I said to Joe, who was aware of the T-shirt and has the T-shirt, I'm like, I didn't think this day could get more special, but now it is.
So every year when 3/28
I'm
goes
gonna get
around,
worried, Fred.
Are you like, what's going to happen
I know,
today?
that's what I said to my wife. I'm like, I'm going to start getting scared every 3/28 because I feel like it's something in the cards.
Way, like good things can happen too.
Yeah, well, it's been one good thing and a couple bad things.
I had a really hard time answering that question.
Yeah.
Did you guys?
Yeah, because you don't like. There's so many selections. Oh, you don't want to meet anybody.
No, it's not. But
it's unbelievable.
It was
no curiosity.
But like, the answer to that would be like any of those, like George Washington.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I would,
right.
yeah, sure. I mean,
Right.
but I don't really feel like that about anybody. Like like that Matt Smith, like that
yeah.
just
Guy Fieri.
pure.
That's my guy.
Like joy.
Well, that's why I said like from what the story is like. It had to be Jesus.
Like that, but that was kind of. But I took it like that, like someone that, like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to get a chance to meet X.
Right.
Like the curiosity of meeting like our nation's like forefathers, absolutely, and guys that were at the cutting edge of technology or whatever, certainly.
Cleopatra was hot. You wouldn't want to meet her.
Hey,
I had a really hard time. Like I said, aside from my wedding day and my 2 kids being born, I don't know if I've ever been as excited as Matt Smith was when he met Guy Fieri. So I don't know if I can possibly put myself in those shoes.
You wouldn't want to know what the ruckus was about Helen of Troy?
Yeah.
Like,
She's like historically beautiful though, Fred. I think you'd be a little bit underwhelmed. You'd be
think
like,
so? Yeah.
This isn't what I was expecting. This isn't like a modern beautiful.
Like Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean,
I feel he'd be musty though.
Would there be a fascination with that?
Non-sports, it makes it difficult for me. Like,
well, I know. Before this,
there's a million sports people that I'd love to meet, but
Bill Belichick.
No, but like Einstein, for example,
that's what I said.
Or Newton.
Well, that's what I meant by technology.
If he could speak English. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you feel like you wouldn't have the depth to ask the right questions though? You'd be like,
I wouldn't.
E equals MC squared, huh? How'd you come up with that one?
A light bulb, huh?
Cool.
Hey.
Sweet.
Edison. That's heady stuff.
But
Alexander Graham Bell.
Think about Isaac Newton, all those things that he discovered. He did that all before he was 24 years old.
Oh, jeez.
well, back then that was old.
Physics
well,
nowhere.
still, think about it though.
He had lived him some life though.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
No,
amazing.
it's all amazing.
There's no internet either.
Yeah, I really dropped the ball on that. I had nothing.
I get what you're saying though. It's hard. It's like
I had nothing that came to mind. I
Non-sports
literally
makes it
thought
hard.
about that for like 10 minutes. which for those questions is that's an eon.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I went with the guy that was just on my mind.
Well, I
from
mean,
my
not all of us
historical
were
research.
related
I'm trying
to, you know,
I know.
these people.
First cousin,
You know,
11 times
George
removed.
Washington, no
so
relation.
do you have like artifacts or like, you know, documents or stuff in your family from back then?
No, not that far back. No,
No?
but I got a lot of my grandfather's stuff. I got like his
Track shoes.
stopwatch
Yeah.
and some of that
Twinkle
stuff.
Toes Dussault.
Ding?
Twinkle Toes, Ding, the dinger. Yeah.
Yeah, I met a guy. Like I had to do a podcast for some guy who ran track at Tufts. I go, "Oh, did you run on the Dussault track?" He goes, "Absolutely, Ding Dussault."
Yeah.
Knew
So-
exactly what I was talking about.
So do you have like property in your family?
I
that-
mean, I should have property in Quebec City, I think, based on some of the settlers
Quebec.
there. Quebec. I should have up by the Dussault. That's where the name Dussault came from.
That's why he plays hockey.
Of the Rapids. That was
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, he was a disappointment though. He can only quarterback PP2,
Yeah.
All
not
right,
one.
let's get some of these phone calls up before we run out of time. We've got Trevor in Kansas City. What's up, Trevor?
Hey guys, sorry to take it back to football here. I just had a question about Luther Burden specifically. So I think he's being underrated. Personally, I think he's the best receiver in the draft. If you want to say Hunter, I get it, but I say Burden. So my questions are, one, do you think that we are interested in Burden with the supposed off-field issues? I don't fully agree with some of that. And two, how do you think he would fit into our offense? Personally, my comp for him is a young Steve Smith Sr.
Yeah,
I'd put him in the donut, probably.
He's a great player.
You know?
I don't hate the comp.
No.
Yeah, I try.
Maybe Smith a little more physical,
Thanks,
but I don't hate
yeah.
the comp.
Yeah, he's a great player. You know, I think most of the off-field stuff you hear about is maturity, not necessarily that he's done anything wrong, just that you know.
Fart jokes and stuff. It's like, grow up,
How
bro.
locked in is he going to be Monday through Saturday? You know, like is
It's
he
a pretty
gonna,
big drop-off
Is he going to be on the program? You know, that sort of thing. Brady Cook has a lot to do with that. That is a
Absolutely.
big part of it.
I like Luther Burden a lot.
I do as well. I don't think he's the best receiver in the class, but I think he's a first-round talent.
But I mean, he could
sure.
be top 3 anyway.
Yeah, I you know, I can see Steve Smith Sr. You know, I think a lot of him, so I try not to comp players to guys that are that, you know, potential Hall of Famers. But, you know, I see a lot of Zay Flowers in Burden as well. Just stop-stop ability,
I like
3
that
levels. You know, a slot. You know, he's going to play inside, but explosive player before and after the catch.
Yeah, so I think we all like him.
Quick
We're
game
not
from
underrating
Steve
him.
from Marblehead. Translate these top-tier draft candidates from Fred to English. Example.
great.
Travis Fisher is for Fred, Travis Hunter. So
yeah.
Fisher Hunter.
Yeah.
Ready? Calvin Baker.
Calvin Banks?
Kelvin Banks.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Makaki Northwall.
Lad McConkey?
No. Makaki Northwall. Think about you have to be a
South Street?
a fan of a famous TV show.
North Wall.
North Wall.
Remember
the North?
Is this a Game of Thrones thing?
Malachi Starks.
Oh, Malachi Starks.
Malachi.
Yeah.
Malachi.
Who?
Malachi.
Fred gave a different version.
Malachi.
Joe Henry Campers.
Joe Henry Campers. Tents.
Jahad Campbell.
Okay.
And finally, Emmanuel Nickery.
That's got to be Emamori.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who is it?
Nick Emanwari.
Emanwari.
That's good.
Aruaria.
Good game.
Don't make fun of me.
It's a tough one.
Let's get to Joe. What's up? He got dropped earlier. What's up, Joe?
Yo, Joe.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
So I got a question, I guess, probably for Evan specifically, just about a player in the draft. But
BK.
I just think as things go on here, it seems to me that Will Campbell's the pick at number 4. I don't. Travis Hunter's not going to be there. Abdul Qadir's not going to be there, and I'm fine with that. I think he's going to be. Going to be a football player, a good leader. He's going to help that offensive line one way or the other. Either way, and I think it's a safe pick. He led that offensive line at LSU for all those years, so I'm fine with that. And then I'd like him to be aggressive in the draft, and I hope they kind of trade back up into the first round and target a receiver. I love Jaden Higgins. We want that ex-wide receiver, right? I mean, for years we've had, and right now the receiver room's just full of kind of slot guys and stuff. So looking for that bigger guy like Jaden Higgins. But my question, I guess, specifically is, I haven't heard a lot of talk about Alec Ayomanor from Stanford. He seems kind of Jaden Higgins type, and I guess I'll just hang up and listen to what you have to say about him.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting player. You know, a couple of years ago, put up like almost 300 yards against Travis Hunter in Colorado. So probably the best tape anybody's had.
That was a huge upset. I remember that. It was a night game. I remember that
Yeah,
game.
probably the best game that any receiver has had against Travis Hunter, the corner.
How long ago was that?
2 years
2
ago.
years ago.
Yeah, it's Ayo Manor. He reminds me a little bit of Juju, like good Juju, not Patriots Juju. So I don't know if I'd necessarily say he's like an outside guy per se. Like he definitely has some vertical juice, but you know, he's a thicker guy. You know, like really good on slants and like in cuts, and you know, tough to bring down after the catch. You know, like that sort of thing. I like him, but I wouldn't say that, you know, I love him for McDaniels. Like he's not really like a route runner. You know, he's kind of a more of a specimen. He's pretty new to football too. He's from Canada. You know, I think he played soccer or hockey. I forget which one it was, but one of those two was an option for him instead, and so he was kind of focused on two
Good
sports.
athlete, though.
Yeah. No, he's an interesting player. Like, one of those guys we were talking about, like, you know, third round. Like, if you wanted to take a dart throw at one of those receivers, I'd put him in that category.
All right, well, that's going to be it for this edition of Patriots Unfiltered. We'll be back on Thursday, same time. Catch 22 tomorrow at noon.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you and Barth can battle it out. What's the biggest disagreement the two of you have right now going?
Biggest disagreement? I don't know. We agree a lot on this
Pretty
draft.
much lockstep?
Yeah, we agree about. I think, you know, we were talking about the receivers. I love speed. Like, I'm a sucker for speed. He tells me all the time, you know, Isaiah Bond, fast and what? Like, what else is he good at besides being fast? So, I think that's probably our biggest disagreement right now is, you know, guys like Isaiah Bond, you know, those types of, you know, 4-3 guys. I'll sign up all day for those guys. He kind of likes different
all right,
types.
Well, that'll be tomorrow at noon. Yeah. We'll see you on Thursday.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.